waiting for the recording to commence. If you cannot hear me well, just let me know. If you can also, because we are also experiencing a bit of connection issues. So at any time, if you feel that we have lost each other, just kindly let me know that we are no longer together. But I also try to check from this side as well to always see if we are still together on the session. So as I have said, I'm recording the session. Just show by be show of virtual thumb that you can hear me clearly, and we can also see the slides that I've shared with you. I'm asking from the audience, for those who have joined us online, if you can show just by virtual thumb that you can hear me well and you can see the slides that I've shared with you. All right, thank you. I think I've got an indication from those who are on the virtual platform. So I think for the purpose of the session for today is just for us to talk a bit about the issue of literature review. Okay, so the main focus will be on literature review, but Prof requested me to address some other things that seem to be sort of unconventional, in terms of just academic writing as well as communication. So she has said I must address issues that relates even to the way you guys are writing emails and you're communicating with your study leaders. And I'm happy that I think how many postdocs are you? Do we have any postdoc here? Postdoc with the two of you. Okay, so we have two postdocs here. On online, are we having any postdoc? Those who have joined on Teams. Is there anyone who is doing postdoc for those who have joined on Teams?
So it's me, Dr. Shiva. I'm doing postdoc here.
Okay, all right. So I'm happy that we have a number of postdocs who I think they've already they've published, they've experience in publishing, and we can also have a sort of a meaningful conversation on the issue of chemical reviews. I think that is the main issue that Prof called for this session. For us to have this session. And let me just indicate to you that this is not a once-off session. I think along the way we'll be meeting also to just maybe continue sharing insights as the postgraduate cycle continues. Because I understand the students, different students, some are maybe too busy with their masters. I don't know. There are some who are doing doctorate, and there are some who are already doing their postdoctoral research fellowship. And I'm happy to have the PDRFs as well, because they will also be able to contribute from experience, how they tackled, this kind of writing. I had a session with Blessing last 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, about 2 weeks ago, where we also shared some insight into this issue of literature review. A chemical review is a kind of literature review writing, isn't it? So myself, I'm not a chemical scientist, I'm not a scientist, a natural scientist, I'm a social scientist, but I approach it from the literature review, in general perspective. Then together we can have a conversation now to bring it home to the chemical, specifically chemical reviews. Okay, so this is what I'm just going to cover, because what I wanted to do was that, let's see, is it moving? Okay, I'm just trying to check my laser if it's working. I don't think, I think the batteries it be finished, or otherwise is it just not working? Okay, I think the laser it's not working, but okay, I will just have to resort to changing the slides manually. Okay, so this is the outline of what we are going to do today. We have 3 hours, so this session is it's running from 1 until 4 o'clock, right? So what we are going to do, this is the structure. So within this first hour, I'm just going to make a presentation to you. I'm hoping last time I came with about 64 slides, but today I think I've tried to compact them to about 30 or so slides. So we are just going to talk about these three aspects that I've already alluded to. The first one being the issue of professional communication. Then we look at academic writing, but from a sort of a research kind of a perspective. Then we look at the issue of literature review, but with an emphasis on chemical review, right? So the first hour, I'll do this presentation. The second hour, we will share our experiences, right? We will share our experiences. Blessing will also talk to us as well from the session that we had previously, what she gained from that, and how maybe that have sort of transformed the perspective that she have in terms of literature review writing. Then also the doctors who are here and those who are also on the virtual platform can also share their experiences. I think you have written these kind of papers before. So you can also share with those who are still in the process of writing those papers, what is it that is expected and what are they supposed to do. So at any time, if you uh, see, okay, I was surprised the last time when I was moderating a session on hypothesis research design and hypothesis formulation for socials. It was for natural sciences. But when I was listening to it, from a social science perspective, I saw a lot of things that we were sharing in common. That at the end, I even said that no, I think the title was wrong. It wasn't supposed to be for natural sciences, but it's just for all it was for both social and natural science. So there's a lot of things that we do share in common in terms of general agreed writing conventions, right? But spellings are spellings. Wrong grammar is wrong grammar. If you write a wrong spelling in natural sciences, if you write a wrong spelling in social sciences, it distorts the message that you want to convey to the reader, right? So the choice of words, all those aspects that link to issues of clarity, conciseness, coherence of your text, issues of linking. Writing is writing at the end of the day, regardless of which field you are in or which field you are coming from. So I'll just discuss this. It's a number of things that I've just put. I think I've already spoken about that, but most of the stuff now relates to it relates to the issue of literature review in terms of how do you even look for the literature. Remember, when you're reviewing literature, it entails that you have followed a particular process for you to be able to identify what kind of literature are you going to focus on, isn't it? You don't just go and pick one start, then you just say, I'm just selecting this start, unless it's a type of literature review that allows you to sort of cherry pick which studies do you want to pick. But there must be a particular motivation even behind that. You cannot just go and say, I'm choosing this. Why choosing that? So there must be a motivation. There must be a criteria that you are using for you to select that these are the kind of studies that I'm going to follow. Then the reading strategies. You must be able to know how you read literature, whether checking relevance and other aspects. Otherwise, you're going to spend the whole day downloading you have printing. Some they even like printing. They have heaps of papers. Then they start marking one by one and saying this one is relevant, this one is not, and putting them aside, record on an Excel sheet, and so on. At the end, they say no, these ones they don't work, these ones work. You understand? But there are certain approaches that seem more sort of optimized, that you can. Should I close? Today, the statement might even be making my spoilers. So there must be ways in which, remember, when you are doing your research, you also, there's an aspect of time that needs to be managed properly. So we don't have the latitude of going and downloading everything. Then later we decide that this doesn't work, isn't it? So already the certain skills that you are already having. Some of these things are not new that I'm saying, because you already doing. You understand? You now have that experience of scanning to just say, okay, when I'm looking at an article, this is what I just checked for first before I decide whether should I continue reading. So then critical analysis framework, organizing literature effectively, tools and techniques for efficient reading, common pitfalls and how to avoid them. Then just so just let's see this as an open discussion, right? At any point, if you want us to discuss or share anything, then you can just stop me and we share. Let's just feel free. It's not a class, it's not another lesson that we are trying to deliver, but it's just a platform for us to just try to enhance each other in our research writing endeavors, right? Okay, so this issue of literature review, why is it important? So I think we already know there are different types of literature review. I won't go much into detail with this. We have different types of literature review, but the most common are, that literature review that is usually embedded within other types of text, like maybe a journal article, then you write a literature review section. In your dissertation, you just write a short literature review section. In your research report, you write a literature review section. But we also have standalone articles, including the chemical reviews that will be maybe sort of a subject of discussion in this session. So those are standalone articles that serve different purposes. This is where sort of a point of reference that for others, even emerging scholars like yourself, you don't need to go back in 1900 to try to trace the history of a particular invention or of a particular concept, but you can look for some quality literature review articles that have already summed up what has been done in the past. Then you can look at it. If there's something that you want to contribute, then you take it further from there going forward, isn't it? So that's why we see some literature review papers that will say maybe this is for the last 10 years. Well, it doesn't mean that there's nothing that has been done in the previous years, or that what has been done in the previous years is not to be considered. But it simply means that someone else have already, took account of that. Then you are adding on top of what has already been done. So standalone articles, but usually the purpose of a literature review, especially if it's a section within any type of text that you'll be writing, it's just demonstrating your knowledge of what is happening within the field. But I always stress that a literature review, it's not your duty. It's not that you are now building a library for us, right? When you build a library, you are just collecting information and you put it there, isn't it? But without adding any value to that. So in other words, there's not. This is where you see those comments that says the reader's voice is missing. You understand? But you are not engaging with the text, but you are just building a library. You're just bringing to tell us that so and so said this, so and so said that, so and so said that. And they are curating information, but you are not adding value. Why? Because you are not going a step further to try to make sense of that information. You are not looking for particular orientations. You are not looking for areas of controversies, disagreements, what kind of methods were applied, including even, we even go to the extent of just taking anything that we see and we think it's literature, as long as we find it online or in any journal, then we think that it's part of this scholarly literature, without go on to further look at other aspects that pertains to the quality of that paper. the credibility of maybe the author of the paper. Where was it published, right? Do we check? There are certain journals. I've submitted a paper to one journal that questioned every source that I used. They checked one by one. The ones that they could not find in their database of trusted journals, they were asking me that this one, we don't know this source. Should change the source, or rather channel the conversation towards something without these particular sources, right? So that showed me that there's actually an emphasis in terms of what kind of sources are you using. And we always try to go towards using sources that are from high quality journals. So I think from your field, the databases where you find quality articles, the publishers, certain journals that publish, quality work, the authors that are authoritative within your field, in terms of that aspect that you're writing about. So, okay, so I think I've already touched on the issue of the purpose. Science or knowledge, it remains a cumulative endeavor. So which means that building up that I've been talking about, that we still need to expand. Remember, it's continuing. If you do a research, then the research ends by you. Then there's a problem with that research, isn't it? Because the research should be sort of a perpetual process, isn't it? I should be able to take it from where you're done and be able to expand it and going on and going on. That's why today we are having laptops that we are. If you see, the first computer, it was not like this. It was a big thing, you see. But now today we are having this. We are working with phones, telephone. I think some of us have witnessed to both. I think most of us, if there's someone who didn't see the call box. Maybe we can probably give a situation of maybe I can just present. Make sure each of them. I mean, I don't want to be unfair. So guys, at any time, if you feel like if you are under duress, then you can just it's the issue of water. There's no water anymore. Okay. So I think maybe we can just cover the presentation, just discuss, so that we can just set a basis for what is it that we are going to do. Then from there henceforth, those who want to consult with me, then you can come individually for consultation session. So I think so the purpose of literature review, like I've said, so science it remains a cumulative endeavor, which means you have to build on to what others do. Like that's why in the end, you must always provide recommendations for what could be done in future that you could not do. There's no research that addresses all aspects. Everything exhaustive, I've done this and that. Everything exactly. There are always some limitations one way or the other. It could be issues of identity, sometimes even time doesn't allow you to come very aspect and so on. So all those things, someone else gets to get involved. But the when you are doing retreat, okay, Yeah, I'm talking about literature review. That even if it's a literature review, at the end, we there should be identification of gaps in it. That is the purpose of the literature review. It's for you to situate your study, to say, okay, this is where my study. Otherwise, there's no need for us to do a study if someone else is there, it's already done. So why we are doing the literature review? It's because we want to end up with saying that this is the gap that we entered. Okay, so let me just.
Check, I've put a new battery in.
Would it be okay? Is it going on here?
Or maybe it's so old. It's as old as me.
I think so. Does it not even?
Okay, where's the other half of it?
Okay, I think.
Or do you want to keep it and then lock up for me? I'm not in tomorrow.
Okay, I can.
You can give me everything on Thursday. Right.
Okay, so the end of any literature review is gap identification, isn't it? You want to identify to say, okay, this is what has been done, or this is what has not been done. Or sometimes, remember, the literature review articles serve different purposes. There are some that, like a scoping review, for example, you are just trying to see what is it that has been done, or it's a precursor for you to be able to do a systematic review, for example. We can't just do a systematic review if there's no literature for you that warrants that you can write a systematic review there. Let's say after that literature, whole exhaustive literature stage, then you end up with one article. Are you going to write about one article? Obviously, there's no way you're going to continue. Just like any other kind of study, that what you want to do, it's not working. You understand? You are violating every assumption that maybe is linked to a particular method. Then you can see that there are papers that we have left, not because we didn't want to write them, but because it wasn't working. The idea was there, but the data did not support that kind of research. But maybe one day the data can be there that can support that, isn't it? Right. So, but because we are violating particular assumptions, you cannot maybe possibly continue. So these review papers, you have different criteria that are followed, right? There's a different, you need to understand this was yours that you are writing is the chemical review. That is what Prof really emphasized. So you need to understand what is it that we call a chemical review. What are you expected to do? So I think one task that I asked the Blessing to do was that, because I've seen the way that the chemical review papers are written, they don't have a structure that maybe the reader can really follow and know that now okay, this is the introduction. The introduction is always there. But when you transition from the introduction, it's not really understandable now. What is it that is going on, right? So I asked her to say, okay, just for interest's sake, was just someone from the street, just put down for me to say, okay, here, this is what I'm doing. Okay, it's not part of your paper, but for me to just understand that, okay, she have finished introducing. Now this is the body of the text. Now she's writing about her findings. Because remember, there are findings. There's data that you are collecting, isn't it? Data doesn't mean that it must be numbers. Right? Data, whatever that you are looking for within those articles that you have selected, right? That is the data that you are putting up, isn't it? If it's a particular method that you want to see whether it does work, then you go in different text to see what if they maybe those articles or different authors, what if they said about those particular method. Then you are pulling out that data. That is the one that you are going to be presenting to us, isn't it? You are going to usually, it's a thematic approach that they are following when they are now presenting. Then at the end, you also give your recommendations that you think based on your findings that you found. Then you give your recommendations. But even the selection process of those papers, it's also something that I asked that, okay, how did you come up by saying this is the set of papers that I'm going to draw from, right? So what is the search criteria that you use? So that is one of the questions that we want for us to discuss later together with the PDRF who have already written these chemical review papers. That the search criteria, is it governed? Is there Okay, I tried to go online to try to search about the chemical review papers, right? As a part of literature review articles. Okay, we have like systematic review, for example. We all write systematic reviews, any field, from one field to another. There is the Prisma statement, isn't it? By Prisma.org. That governs the way that it's written, right? Previously, anyone could write it in any way, right? Until there was a sort of a convention that was reached, conference of some sort, that came up with that Prisma organization. That governs the way in which systematic literature review are written so that quality is maintained. So there's a process to say, you do this, you do this, you do this, and this step, you do this. This is how you include or exclude studies, your inclusion, exclusion criteria, and so on and so on, then your analysis. At the end, you even have to put that diagram. That's sure to say, okay, this is where I started. I started by exhaustive literature stage. I got 500,000 articles, but from those 500,000 articles, remember, you extract extracting the references, then you use this software that can try to sort out, deleting certain that are not applicable and so on, until they are confining, then you end up saying, I ended up with these nine articles. So those are the ones that I now create and now reading and pulling my data from then you continue doing the analysis depending on the research questions that you are answering, of which I also know on the chemical review, there's the research question that you pose, isn't it, at the beginning? Then that's the research question that you want to answer, right? You go on to do your literature search, right? But literature searches, they differ according to the type of article. Like there are certain articles where the literature search is not exhaustive, right? When we say was literature, we have published and unpublished literature. Unpublished, it's called gray literature. So there's some literature that is influential, but never been published. Some seminar works, so on, some maybe conference, people go and present in conferences and so on. Then people get ideas from that. But within fields, I don't know for the sciences field, but there are other fields where certain organizations, they have a repository for unpublished work. Right? Okay, literature search can never be really exhaustive in practice, but it's you who determine. There are certain things that are checked whether did you do an exhaustive literature search. Why? We are just checking, have you considered all those databases that you can consider? Have you also considered what has not been published? Right? But in a way, there's no way you can know that everything that has been published, then you find it in one place and so on, right? But you have to demonstrate that we have considered both gray and existing, publications when you are doing your literature. So we also need to know, how do you do that literature search, right? Then there are other type of review articles where you can actually choose to say, okay, within this field, I'm going to choose work by so and so and so. Then you put it together. But it's normally usually done for those who are influential in your field. Okay. Remember, there are people who are so important in the field that whatever that they write, it goes under scrutiny. For us, we can do certain things and still get away with it. We can even plagiarize the whole paper, and no one will say you plagiarize the paper. Why? Because they are not important, right? No one is really following what you are doing. But imagine those big groups, they just do anything, just taking even a paragraph or just saying something wrong. I've read papers that cite my work saying what I didn't do. Right? That I know that I didn't even do this. Some they say I didn't do, they claim they have done what I did. Then they claim that they are the ones who have done it. This is the first time this has been done, unlike so and so, then they put me on unlike. But yet I'm the one who they actually saw that idea. I don't complain, I just leave because it's not like it's important, really important for me. I just see it, then I say, okay, it's okay. right? But imagine if it's done by someone with influence, it will be the top of the game, isn't it? A career can even end. For just plagiarism can end one's career, isn't it? Yeah. But ours do not end. Why? Because we are not yet important. When you are important, then you see that whatever that you do, someone is there to critique it, someone is there to question it. Studies, PhDs are done on your study. You see, people would even want to replicate what you have done. You understand? To see whether does it work or it doesn't. It doesn't work. Then okay, so the purpose, I will skip that. For those who are online, are we still together? Can you still hear me?
Yes, Doc, I can still hear you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the purpose, I think, it's just more similar to what I've been talking about, but it's always a good practice to analyze previous research and theories, identify areas of controversy, contested claims, highlight any gaps that may exist in existing literature to date, strengthens theoretical and methodological foundations review. Because I saw that your chemical review papers that I've seen, mostly you focus on a particular the method to do something, even the method, not what do you focus on?
Review over the students that now that one student tries to find the stuff. The way I can say this is like that one.
It's that 121.
This one I'm making it.
Yeah, so there's always something that they are trying to provide a solution, to check with what is it that has been done, what has not been. So that is the gap identification at the end, which is what must be there at the end, that you say, okay, this is the gaps that I think. Then obviously I think your research, was this is part of a broader research that you are doing. So which is the gap that whatever that you are going to do is now stemming from that now. That is the gap now that I'm now occupying. You found yourself a position. Because if we are doing a PhD, it's even more important that there must be something that you are contributing that is new. And that must be clear to say, okay, this is the gap that I'm filling with this. And it must be convincing that this is a gap. Even if you know that it's not convincing, you have to make it convincing that it is a gap. Because sometimes the way that you write, there are people who can tell you a story and give the story of life. Then you say, people who are talented in talking, I think you're great people who can talk and emphasize something, then you believe them. Otherwise, that is not. So sometimes you may tell even the truth, but the way that we are telling it, someone might not. Well, remember, all these things, some of the things are subjective, depends on whose else does the work end up with. Right? I might see a contribution. Then someone else may not even see that contribution. Right? We have worked, remember, even during the course of our the postgraduate cycle, there are certain things that maybe the supervisor would say, yes, okay, remove this. I've removed things in my master that pertain to my problem experiment. That the examiner said doesn't say. But I knew that I had written. But then the examiner said, no, it's not clear because we didn't put one thing. Then it's things that I removed. Right? So those things here, right? But it depends. What I'm trying to say is that it's always an element of subjectivity that is there. Someone else's opinion of what is deemed to be a contribution, right? But you have to, it must be explicitly stated that this is the contribution that I'm making. So it also enhance the development of arguments and discussions. Okay, so remember, I said I'm going to also talk about the issue of professional communication. So it's just a break from the literature review, then we'll continue with it. But this is also part of it. Because if you cannot communicate, writing is a communication. So if you cannot communicate, then it means even when you're writing, you have a problem. Because you cannot really clearly convey. It's a message. You have a message that you want to. Okay. Obviously, there's a problem that you want to solve. That's why. Otherwise, if there's no problem, then why do it? There's something societal problems that exist that we want to try to solve, we want to try to improve whatever that is there to try to enhance. At the end, everything must link back to us, our quality of life, isn't it? So that's what we focus on, which I say as the economists, we focus on the quality of life. Right. So you can research about lithium ion batteries, but at the end of the day, it's us humans. It must improve our life, isn't it? It must benefit the people. If it doesn't benefit the people, then it must benefit. Okay, remember, even if it benefits the environment, at the end, the benefit comes to the people because it's us who do it. It's not the animals that are researching, isn't it? It's us who are researching. But we can research about animals, but the end benefit comes back to it must be linked to us. So communication is important. So remember, this also protects even the way that you write a simple email. Okay, let me start by saying academic writing, even the academic setting itself, the formal sort of kind of thing, right? So which entails that our communication is better. Right? I always give an example of a journalist in academic, right? A journalist can write. They just sit down and like come up with the story and write it. Because really no one is very questioning me. Okay, they don't even like the beginning. Two questions that wait. They tell you that I'm people will be. Even if they know that there's nothing. Sometimes they can buy that information. Even I have a story, they call you the story, produce the story. They want the story, they can pay for that. Without verifying whether it really real or not. Right? They don't reveal their sources. But they are writing as well, it's not fair. You can just write in a manner that catches attention. I've read in a certain read in a newspaper that entails it's one of these guys who are in the music and DJ Tira and like I think it was about him saying the father will die. But the way that it was written, it was like a him with the title. The caption of the title. Right? Why? Because the father of Tira is not really important. It's Tira who is important. So the moment I see that Tira is no more, or something, they capture it in a manner that they distort. When you are reading now, they say, no, this father was about the stories of the father, but the way that it has been put, it's been put like it's a, okay, it's distorted, it's misleading. Even if I didn't want to read about the father of him, I end up reading thinking is person that. So that is the kind of writing that journalistic is. It's also informal. Okay, they can write in a formal manner, informal, it's just a mix, right? For academic writing, it's formal, evidence based. We reveal our sources. So they must be supported, everything that our that we make them must be supported by evidence. We also even go on the extent of assessing the validity of them. Those are of the sources. So this is the formal environment. The way communication has to be formal. From the way that you draft a email, I draft the email. I've also read in that format. Maybe you can write an email to anyone. I just try to write it in a more professional manner. That it's every more those, everything is there. Reference is there. Your salutation, dear say or medium, dear prof, and knowing how also to these are things that you just have to learn over time. They are useful, not just for the academic setting, but for communication. The edge of communication, how many you say? A lot of knowledge, isn't it? So it's a formal setting where we expect that when we are communicating on a formal setting, we also use formal communication channels. Of course, we do have relations of talking in one, but WhatsApp is like, you cannot say this is it, because this is private, right? I can just say what I don't, there's no one who is really reading and marking one and writing. Was not a formal setting. But when you are writing an email, that has to be formal. So you have to ensure clarity and understanding in academic discourse or whatever that you are writing about. But remember, you are writing reports, you are also sometimes it's feedback that they are addressing that particular text that you have written, and so on. Progress reports, you do progress reports where you have to state what you have done and so on and so on. Okay. It should enhance collaboration and professional relationship, contributes to the credibility of the researcher. Remember our tone that we use as well. Sometimes tone, written text is cheap because the way that it's perceived by people can differ from one person to another. You might write thinking that they are being polite, but when I read it, I just read the person who's with it. Or sometimes the message I just get it wrong. Totally, totally wrong, right? Yeah. So the choice of words, the way that you also write, that is to always you must verify whether does it lead to enhancement of your professional relationship, collaboration, and so on and so on. So these mostly the common formats. I've already spoken about some of them. Emails, use a professional subject line, maintain a formal structure, greeting, board, closing, be clear and concise, and avoid slang in informal language. And sometimes we do high prof. Because remember, we are colleagues, sometimes we just, but we have to, I think where you are supposed to do it, when we are not there to do it. Something that is professional, and I want to approach it. If I'm writing an email, dear prof, etc. I really write without a subject line or without something. It doesn't, it's even too awkward. Doesn't even mean, then just give me the message. Of course, I'm going to say, I still believe the way that is, it should happen. Okay. So, I think by now, you just have to go, even if you go online, you can just say, structure. You can check GPT and try to do it. Does it show me a structure? The element that should be contained in proper subject line, in salutation, the spaces in between, and so on, where space supposed to be, writing well, editing, writing your email before you send it out. Always very important. So sometimes you find that, okay, we are busy, just quickly there. I said only that now, when sometimes we change targets, but I always state that the email must be sent maybe 30 seconds after so you can set it as well. But those last moments, it's like you want to attach, but now they also remind you that when you say the word attachment, or if anything you say attach, then it's going to remind you that you forgot to attach. Right? Which is good. Why? Because we always write it forget like that. If I tell your attention to the attached document, but the attached document is not in the email. So those are just certain things that just sort of diminish, our professionalism in terms of our conduct in research writing. So your board written well, the way that you just writing, I work this in your files well, that kind, just establishing a bit of rapport. Then after that, you go on your message that you want, then you thank the person establishing rapport. I thank you for this. Then you start, you close, kind regards, yours faithfully, and so even those work like yours faithfully, so go on read about it as well. There are certain context in which there are certain context where you can, an interview, you can disqualify the interview for using a certain way that shows that they are connected. The laws faithfully, they are used in particular point. There are some that you use for someone that you don't know. There are some that you use for someone that you know. There are some that you use for maybe people who are very close to you. So in always every context is its own sort of kind of words that should be used, or certain phrases that should be used. Then we have presentation. We do presentation. Can you see on my presentation? What do you see when you look at my slide? Yes, the heading size, the size of the font, only, okay. The font itself, it's about the font that is there. You don't need to, you will never but I once attended the conference in Telegram. The second guy came to that. Sometimes slides look feasible, honestly, to electron, but the projector doesn't project like this. Right? So you must know the font that work well with presentation. So he came, then he projected. We could not see. Right? But you have got to present in under those circumstances. So they are now apologizing to explain just apologize. So you don't need to set yourself for that. Another trick as well. Don't apologize. Just do what you do. Don't say I'm sorry. Because when you say I'm sorry, you're now bringing me to the attention of something maybe that I didn't. Or maybe I could see those colors. Because it wasn't really it wasn't there. But now you are changing me. That my colors look. And I'm gonna start living problems when I go. Even when I was seeing now suddenly I don't see. Because the employee. So just you have mentioned it. Yeah, sure. You have mentioned. So just to continue with what is there. Because it's of course, even if you are it's gonna change my color. It's not gonna change. So that's the that. But professional they have to look professional. You can see the logo of which is there. Our organization, the logo for RCP, which I'm representing, right? If I was going to another, usually I would also put for maybe chemical sciences there or something like that, so that everyone must be catered. We have to participate. But if it's a conference, my university is there, then I can put also the one of the conference as well. So that has to be there on every slide. And you must be able to see. But you will see that every slide has one. Don't just see one. But even on the opening, when you go on the opening of my slides, you can just see that there's certain information that I've provided. I'm on slide 9. Right? Can you see? I start with this cover to just show, okay, everything, the organization that I'm representing, and so on and so on. What is it that we are coming here for? With the date of where do we do that? The time that we are doing this, who is the one facilitating? I provided my emails. There might be certain things that you cannot ask me, but later you want to ask me. You are supposed to be able to contact me, and all that information is there. I even go on to maybe to sort of a slide that you can also use for lending, where I just maybe talk about the theme of what is it that I'm going to focus on. That was a general theme. It's just sit right and right, but this is what I'm focusing on today. Then from there, I outline my presentation. You must know that, okay, this is the structure. I'm going to talk about this. I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that, right? And if you are presenting for conference, these are skills that you must learn. You have to be fast. There are certain things that are important, and there are certain things that are not important. At conference, your results are important. So you must make sure you prepare time for you to talk about the results. Otherwise, you go after talking about the introduction and background and literature without talking about your peer. So all those things should be skipped fast. You say them in passing, right? Even if you have slides, but you skip them. You must have a sort of an approach of skipping things, so that you, depending on time. But already you have told them that this is what I'm going to focus on. Then you move on to start. You introduce, and you see on top I section, right? 1.1. Then I talk about it. 1.2. Then I talk about all right. So the all right. So you can see there, even on top, I section it, isn't it? Just the same way when I was introducing on the outline, can you see I've sectioned it. Sectioning is important. Why is sectioning important? Because it's the one that would sort of when we talk of coherence, we cannot talk of coherence without sectioning. I must know at any time the reader must know that now we are here. Okay, already this is going with my section that I've put. I'm not just writing things, but there's a coordinated sort of a structure that I'm following, right? Including the sectioning. So now you know that I'm at 1.10. Now we are now looking at this. So then you can see the arrangement. I always try to arrange things in a manner that is clear. Your font size should also be a font that is not that it's filling. Okay, I rarely provide too much detail on it because the presentation sometimes must be just be because there are people who write, they just take the whole paragraph. The whole paragraph, I think you've seen presentation. The paragraph, the whole paragraph, technically, right? I always try to, by all means, I must be able to engage with the if I don't agree with them. Don't go into a session now. If you want to read for us, why did you just bring them that department? Then you can read for ourselves. And so once you see that they are rereading what is on this, you've already presentation is going on. You must be able to talk about what is on the slides. These are pointers that guide conversation. Of course, there are times when you can create a path or want to go fast, and you can, but remember the people are also reading. So they get more information as you talk about something. So I used to use a rule of thumb of saying just at least if I have 7 words in a line, it must give me an idea of what I'm talking about. And then later we just start doing this because it's more things that we are doing, the preparation and so on that goes into it. Yeah, and so on. Okay, so so that is true. In other ways, I'm just saying what I'm simply saying is that this has to be professional, right? It has to be professional the way that you present it. So you can see going until I present everything. I'm trying to show it as clearly as possible. There's nothing just overlapping on each other. Certain things are lying on top of the other. People don't understand, right? People judge a book by its cover. That's why we say do not judge a book by its cover, because we always, at the end, it's a mistake that people, but that's what people do. Okay, there are things that we buy because we have seen a nice package, but when we test them, they are not nice. Or you ask yourself that why did I buy this? The packaging, it's always very important. So people build, they listen to you because of what they are seeing, right? They will take you serious because you have shown that I've prepared for this, right? So the preparation is also revealed in your slide. Myself, I'm very particular. You can even see the spacing that I put. So I'm particular with, I like things that are like justified. I don't want things that are just falling everywhere. So I justify my things. So everything you must see. Even when I change from one slide to another, you will see that the text usually it remains on the same level because I have my template that I'm following. So I follow that template. So everything must be clear. Then at the end, also even provide, because remember, in an academic setting, we talk about plagiarism. So you have to provide at least some sources, because when you are preparing the presentation, it's not that you're just sitting and writing from your head. No, you have to consult maybe certain sources and so on. Then you provide, and also some references that you want just for further reading for the audience. Then you can put them there. Continue to a session of, I call it open discussion, where people ask questions and so on. Then you can thank your audience, right? If it's necessary, provide again your contact detail to the people so that they know. I know that in a conference already they would have cut you out because the time is always usually like last time when we were there, it was 10 minutes. So 10 minutes, it's really, you can't really, the moment you are trying to finish the introduction, they are already telling you that it's already 5 minutes. It's almost time up. So it's difficult, and it's very understandable because it's always difficult, for us to within a very short space of time, for you to exhaust all the information that you are having, right? Okay, so I think I've spoken about that. I've spoken about the okay, I've spoken about the issue of presentation reports. We always do this. The proposal, that's a communication, isn't it? When you're proposing, you are communicating. Even men, when we propose, okay, I'm not saying go, they are married, go and propose again. But I'm saying, when you propose like this, you do each other, right? Just like, you must have a structured approach, isn't it? You have to make sure that even if you don't bath that day, you bath, you wear nice, you look at yourself and say, I'm okay, now I can approach that day. You are trying to enhance your chances of the proposal being accepted, right? It's the same as writing. You're proposing, isn't it? So you must make sure that everything is structured, it's good, so that someone can believe what so that you're trying to make sure that it works. Okay, it works, so that it can be ability. So those are all communication. That's why it's also important for us to talk about. Because the communication is always an aspect in everything that we have. There's a message that we are giving. That there's a message that we want to read and support arguments with evidence. Okay, go structured content with creating support arguments with evidence and references that are implemented. Be precise and objective. I say in academic writing, contrasting it with if you contrast it with public speaking, right? Public speaking. A public speaker will stand in front of you, then tell you about what they want to talk about. Then they talk about it. Then after that, they tell you what they have talked about. Like 3 times, repeating the same thing. It's always good because for the audience, it enhances the understanding of the message that you want to give. But in academic writing, that doesn't. You go straight to the point. We don't have that latitude of writing. You write and you repeat, you write and you repeat. It's even worse when the type of, depending on the type of articles, like if it's a journal article, where they tell you that the word limit is 4,000, it's 5,000, it's 6,000 words. So which means in 6,000 words, you should have delivered your message already, right? So the issues of being precise, the issues of conciseness, clarity, and these language issues, they always affect each other. They always affect each other. So at the end of the day, yes, is there? Yes. Oh, can you hear me? I think I have to mute the participant private conversation. So what I'm trying to say is that issues of language, they go hand in hand. Right? If you use a wrong word, you have distorted message. Grammar is wrong. At the end, if even your work is not coherent anymore, how can you link things that are making sense? At the end of the day, it still doesn't make sense. So it's a duty for you to read. There are certain things that we can't talk about at this level now, that the spelling, things are like the spelling of this word, but they are done at other levels. Now we just have to concentrate your work. It's you who is writing it. Yeah, at first you assume 3 different laws. You are the writer, you are the reader, you are the editor of the work, you are also the reader of that. So you have to look at it from different perspectives, isolating yourself from the text as the writer. And many times I've reread my work and I say, okay, this is including even things that I always when you write something and just say it, you always make a mistake. There must be a mistake that you have committed. Most of the time, you find something that is wrong. Even an email, it's important for you to read, no matter how tired you are. But when you write a communication, go through it, just read it attentively, because sometimes we read over our mistake. Where I didn't put a word, I just put it in reading. saying it, but it's not there on the text. So you have to you know, so these are issues that are also important that pertain to the issues of clarity, conciseness, grammar, spellings, and so on. And nowadays we have some AI tools that we can also use to try to check, isn't it? Okay, presentations, I've talked about them. Then formal tone, avoid contractions in colloquial language, evidence-based arguments. Don't just argue for the sake of arguing. There must be someone also supporting that the evidence is in form of this literature, existing publications that are there. This is my argument, but there's also others who are supporting the same notion that I'm with this idea. That is important. So that is where we find our supporting from credible sources. That's why we don't want Wikipedia. Why? It doesn't mean information on Wikipedia is wrong. It doesn't mean information on LinkedIn is wrong. It doesn't mean all information on Facebook is wrong. But we can't cite that as scholarly text. Why? Because there's always a possibility that that is not good. Right? It's not peer reviewed. Even journals that publish, many journals that are peer reviewed or that do not go through the peer review process. Some of them go through the peer review process. That's the problem. I give the with some of them, and some many people journals that I have some that like something that we always accept and even if you know that I now I'm tired, you know,
It will be accepted.
it's accepted. In those of methods, I don't know, I see a lot of time also, so they're second to nothing. They are accredited, but they are not online. They just take anything that just comes their way. But those are not good or not. So you will also have to judge. That's why at the end we must always check. Okay. Then okay, formal tone, I've spoken about it. I don't know what I wanted to write there, then I repeat it. Essays, common academic writing formats. We write essays, research papers, that's what we do mostly. Reviews, like what we are doing, chemical reviews, literature review papers. Summarizing and evaluating existing studies. This is a dissertation, in-depth research studies that contribute original knowledge to the field. And then this is the dissertation where we're not saying everything that we want to say. Right? We can do, remember the issue of graphs that we were talking about, that figures and what. There must be items being to what we are doing. Not just hit the figure just because we are doing. Or something that you can say in text, and then you make it a thing. Right? So if you can say it takes then at 90, there's no need for you to create a table, then you replicate what they you put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you tell us that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there was no need for you to calculate what. So a figure, a table, there should be self-explanatory. It has to be done. Why? It means I should be able to interpret what is on a figure without having to read the text. So that figure, its caption in what is beneath, must tell me the story. Then I just have to, if I need to just refer to the text, then I can. So you don't have to say everything on the figure, and you can talk about important things. Because you can also not just put a figure when you don't talk about anything. So that tell us what is important. If it's a table, then analyze the table, then give us the analysis of it. Don't tell us that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6, 7, 8, and 9. In column 2, there's what. So why are you telling us if you could just write about it? Just write about it. There's no need for a table, right? So this in most cases, they will sort of interpret it as or receive it as if you are just trying to add more, in terms of page and scope and quantity of the stuff that you're writing. Then avoiding plagiarism is always important. Also, the concept of self-plagiarism as well. You can plagiarize your own work, though it sounds awkward that it's my work, but the concept is on credit for that. If you have been credited for it, then why should you be credited again? Why should you take a publication that you published or read, then submit it somewhere else under maybe a different heading to be another publication? It cannot. If you have been awarded a master, then why sort of bringing the same thing again? And sort of, you are not getting something meaningful, then you want it to be a PhD. Already have been credited, right? But it doesn't mean you cannot use that work. I've used my work that I've written a lot of them. Okay, when I want to write a paper, I first go to my literature that I've written in my master's or wherever. If I find something that is important, I take it, I use it, then I update it to now. But you have to say that, okay, this part of this that borrows from where, right? So that whoever is reading must know that, okay, this already is something that has been done. But papers, I think they always say at least about maybe over 50% should be the new work that you are doing now, something that is new, for it to be considered an original, article. So they always have a sort of a reward for that. Some even accept just by saying, I have papers that I have put word for word, then I write an article. But then both journals also are now subjecting our papers to our manuscripts to Turnitin and to other various plagiarism checking software that check similarity. If they flag out, then they can tell me, like one of my papers that I submitted at subjects, they see that it's linked to my PhD. Then when they check, they actually see that it's linked to my study that I've done it with us. Then they write for me to say, okay, I must declare that this is part of, it's coming from my thesis. You are allowed to publish papers that you link to your thesis, right? Okay.
I'm
Sometimes,
sorry, Doc. I'm sorry,
yes.
Doc, to interrupt you. Could you please maximize your screen? I can't see.
All right. Okay, should I? Oh, all right. No, sorry. Now let me share the bigger screen. Sorry, I didn't see
Oh,
that.
no.
Now it's sharing this smaller one.
No, it's fine, Doc.
Okay, there it is. Can you see the right screen now?
Yes, I can, Doc. Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing it to my attention. All right. So
Right.
journals, they do that, but there are some that do not want that. If you write from they will tell you that if they flag plagiarism, they will say reduce that plagiarism. So even if it's your, remember, the second time you write something, it's not the same quality as the first, right? So, yes, so already diminishes the quality of your work. But how I say it the first time, I can't say it again the same way the second time and on. Okay, so there are journals that also do that. Then, okay, proper citation and referencing is always important, right? When we talk about literature review, use prescribed referencing style that you use in your field. It guides you to show you how different types of text. Now, because of advancements in technology, there's also even other ways in which, do some sources that we didn't think of as sources before. They are now becoming important, that we can be able to actually present that information as part of academic text, like a YouTube video, something from LinkedIn. You can be able to cite it. They are now also introducing ways of citing such, right? Use of generative AI tools. If you write with ChatGPT, you must show that there's text that I've written using ChatGPT. Though we want to try to even avoid that, because just the mentioning of that, it takes away a large part of our credibility in what we have done. To say I wrote using AI, so people are just going to say it's not you who wrote, who wrote the paper. So we avoid mentioning such, right? That's why when you use this generative AI like ChatGPT and so on, it's important that don't use it to write for you. Use it maybe to generate some ideas and so on, and just for direction that you can take. Yes. Please. Mm.
But if it's in a way where you write and then you ask the AI to improve it, make it sound something that is your text, that will you need to.
Yeah, but I actually feel like either way you still need to acknowledge because you're using it to improve what you've already that element of yes. Yeah. Yes.
So we are only saying if you grammatical structure
But-
grammar.
Yes. Even Google. Yeah. Mm. So you have used AI. So it's just the issues that are controversial and where there are mixed sort of emotions, on those aspects. Some they feel like, there's no. I also feel the same. Chat GPT and Google. Okay. Okay, Chat GPT is actually better in giving certain information than what Google can give you, right? It's just that they've gone an extra notch of trying to bring things together for you, right? But it's the same thing. I don't know when last did I visit a library and go to the section where I'm supposed to go to look for information. I just do my research online because that's where the information is. So these are issues that are just, controversial and also increasing in prominence with different voices over that, in terms of what is it that is supposed to be done. But as we move on, I think certain policies are being crafted that governs that, including in terms of publications as well. But publications, these publishing houses, these journals and so on, there are certain things that they don't really touch on. Like, for example, I don't see many journals putting emphasis on give us your data that you have used, show us the method that which softwares can you share us with this and that. They don't do that, but they know that researchers, they are not keen really to do open to do much to that extent. But there are journals that ask you to say, when you submit, please also submit your data that you analyzed. Please also submit this. That improves the credibility of the research writing that we are doing. Do you know you can write a paper from your head without any analysis because you now know the rules, isn't it? You postdocs, you know the rules of writing. You know what you are going to be asked. You know what to avoid when you're writing a paper. That, okay, if I say this, they are going to believe me. Usually, if the results are significant, people tend to believe more. But it takes away that aspect that people they force the results to be significant even when they were not. They call it you're torturing the data to confess. If you torture the data, it will confess. So if it doesn't give you what you're asking for, you torture it until it gives you what it's asking, what you want, or it gives you the mess, confirms what you're thinking. That is wrong because no, it's an answer. If there's nothing, I've published some papers where the result I didn't just find anything confirming what I was thinking. So then I put it because that's what I found. That, okay, I've done this, I've followed all the procedures that I'm supposed to follow, or assumptions I've followed, and this is the correct analysis that I've done. I've demonstrated that the analysis, I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. But the results were not just significant, right? They are insignificant. So which means, remember, hypotheses have two ways, isn't it? Yeah, so take the other way that have been confirmed by the results. Fine. Yeah. That is the issue. That is the issue that
They say it's not moving.
Yes. You didn't discover.
It's something new because it's not giving you.
Yes, it didn't answer for that circumstance. Then okay, apply your mind. Why now? In China it was significant, but why here? Then you are now adding your contribution, right? Okay, but there are some who feel that if they don't find that result, it's like if it's insignificant, they can even manipulate the figures, but they know when it's significant, it's supposed to be like this, then they change the results. And journals don't ask for those. They don't replicate there's no studies replicating what we are doing because, like I said, we are not yet important. If we are important, someone would want to say, I want to run the similar analysis that you have done. But mostly, if you ask for data, I've asked written to certain authors asking to say, can you share with me maybe the data or share with me the codes that you used to do this? They will refuse. Majority they will refuse. Why? Because remember, they are thinking that I will find faults in what they've done. Then at the end, you can lead to a discredit of that particular start and so on. So that can also be. So plagiarism at all times must be avoided. I was having a student who was consulting on issues of plagiarism, saying he's trying to talk to me on how he can reduce plagiarism. So unfortunately, the interpretation of plagiarism depends. Okay, there is no shared understanding, but there must be a shared understanding. But supervisors, there are certain people who just look at similarities and isolation. They don't understand it, what it means. Because when they see the similarities, they say you're plagiarizing. After 6 million, no. It's an indicator to plagiarism. So which means it flex out. So when I see the high, I must be on higher rated that this person could have plagiarized. Then I must go into it. But if it's too high, the chances, okay, the higher it is, the higher the chances of plagiarism. But also dependent on the volume. If you write 1,000 pages, then I write 1 page. Mine can reflect as 100%. But if you have included that 1 page in your page, you might see that is 1 page. And there's 1 page. You can plagiarize the whole chapter or the whole section without it being seen as a similarity, because the percentage is lower, because the percentage is calculated relative to the number of words that are in there. So the lower they are, the higher it is. Even when you're addressing it as well, the lower they are, the faster it is to address it. And if I say remove 1%, just of 1,000, then go to the strength to remove. Why? Because it's also calculated. So the issue is not supposed to be that the similarity score must be 5%. No, you must interrogate it. Go through it. You check it page by page. You can go and check it. Checking where the person is. So you can also use those. But 10, usually these are the other ones. Come out and so on. Even if you subject it to the, remember this works with the repository. It means what has been submitted to click before including what they felt that they are developed with prior to launching. And so in order to take, I always say that one day the tendency will reach translation. Why? Because there will be no way of saying without that being flagged down as a potential. Because it will be one of the which is going to be said scholarly. So it means in a sentence that I'm getting, they just in that sentence, if there's 4 words that you also are appearing in your sentence, then it's not going to happen. So the chances of having 4 words in many people's way. How do we? So that conversation, you can't raise anything, because now you say page 1. If there are people who have said page 1, there is now the common knowledge. If you say any common knowledge, then if you are having a large piece of text, those abbreviations can take that that is an issue. So also issues of trying to cheat with usually, like if I'm setting up an assignment, I always say everything must be breakdown. And then so that they see, because there are people who they will put it in the code, then they make it work. So that the lecture doesn't see that this is then if I have said exclude code, then both have to be really excluded. Some they change their take, they make it images. Because usually images. So because remember an image is not make the idea of anything. Right? So all those are tricks that all students use. But yeah, it's not supposed to be done. Because, right, remember that part of integrity must always be there. We don't have to take that away from. Okay, then going back to critical literature review, more than summarizing, involves analysis, synthesis, critique, right? So you break, if the ideas are complex, break down to understand, to level where they are understandable. Examine, identify key arguments, examine relationships between concepts and so on. That is the value addition that you are doing to the text. Like I said, don't build a library, but add value to that. Then integrating different sources, identifying patterns, and forming new insights by connecting ideas. A literature review is a conversation, basically. Remember what I'm talking about. It's a conversation of different authors. Don't just say one person, then you say I do it. Which literature are you reviewing if you are only writing about one person? Right? So it's a conversation. If you see in one paragraph, you are repeating the same author or same authors all the time, then there's something wrong. You can't cite 4 people, then you say literature, then every paragraph you are citing the same people. That's wrong. Let the authors talk, supporting the idea that you are bringing for. So I must hear this talk, is also supporting that, is disagreeing because what she's doing this, she's doing that, so that integration. Right? So I hardly repeat once. Okay, there are certain things that are annoying that you, even yourself as the writer, you feel that now I'm being annoyed by this. Right? If you are citing the same person, you can feel that. Even when you are reading something, you're just being, oh yeah, every sentence is starting by according to. So even when you are reading, it doesn't sound nice. You are reading. It's not like you are wrong to say according. That's the way that you are just using it. It's just boring for someone to read it in that perspective. Then you have to create a critique. Evaluating strengths, weaknesses, assumptions, implications, often positioning one's argument within the scholarly. So everything is supporting the argument that you are putting for, but you are supporting it using the text, including when you are writing your chemical papers. We do the same thing, isn't it? You don't just say so and so said this, so and so said that, so and so said that. Yeah, carrying mind, isn't it? Also getting during the conversation as well. Also, that's why it's also important that you are at the same level with people you are right. So that when you make your voice, we don't say that now. The text is so different. That's when I read and when now this one we copy paste from the source. Then now it's building graphic. So it's always important that you maintain the level should be maintained. Then okay, so this is my example that I give of oranges. So you bring oranges, né? So these are sources that I just bringing, right? So if you leave it like this, you brought oranges, then you left us with oranges. You didn't do anything. So it means this is building a library now. You're just telling us what is it. So and so did this, so and so did that. But you didn't go to the extent of asking yourself that, so what? It's like a root question, but that's a question that a researcher must always ask. After you have put that down, so and so said this, so and so said that, ask yourself that, so what? Right? Then the conversation now begins. That's where you begin now to add value to the literature review exercise that you're doing. So, so I always say, okay, do something. So at least just cut the oranges for us. You have a little bit, you brought them, but you cut. At least you did something. You can make a juice, an orange juice for us, isn't it? At least you would say, I've done an orange juice. You have further done something. So we have a different product that we don't see oranges if it's only the juice. But until you test it, or maybe by looking, you think that this looks like orange juice because of its color. Or rather, if you can even make a cocktail, isn't it? So just mix with other stuff that we don't even recognize the oranges anymore. So we don't even see you have integrated the sources, you have all add your own training with that. And at the end of the day, you have synthesized the information, you have paraphrased, the idea doesn't sink. If you sing a song using the same melody, then you say the difference. Same method. You are using your own words, but singing the same melody and the same tune. You cannot play the same instrument, then say something else different, then you say I did it. Of course, you have to ask for permission to use the instrument that someone uses. So that same concept applies to the when you are writing a sentence, you have to order the structure of that particular sentence from the text that is where you take it. So that change in synonyms does not, it constitutes plagiarism. Because you have kept the structure of that sentence in the same, in that particular thing. Also, I'm not saying I was sometimes, because remember, changing the structure of the sentence is difficult. So we just take it because we found it easy. We just take the we just try to say, I'm saying it differently, but let's say it's just exactly the same way. It's how it was. So you have to change the structure. Plagiarism is a deep concept. But if it's applied in its entire, I mean, just many people will be that's a quote of yes, they will portray of you cannot satisfy all the quote the facility of plagiarism, right? But you have to try to change the. So I always encourage them to read, get the idea, then just put it in your. That's the best way of paraphrase. Don't copy what is there, then you have to paraphrase.
I think what I do is I write, what I do is I write my table.
Yes.
I don't copy and paste and try to play it.
Yeah. Then you.
When I write in my mind,
Yeah.
even if at all I need to make corrections or I need to avoid plagiarism, I believe the work I have did for them is within my. Based on the copying and pasting and the editing.
Yes. Yes.
I will get my point.
Yeah, I do get point. But also now, okay, then you will find support for what you are writing. Sure, right? Because there are certain sections or certain part of academic text where the focus is very much, especially when we talk about digital. Because digital is about what is being published, what has been done. So once the conversation turns to you, what you do, it's very good because that's the best way of paraphrasing. Because you get an idea, you do your reading, you get an idea, then you start writing your own thing along with the idea that you. Because remember, you can cite a source, not because you're in the US election.
Yeah.
But because that source has inspired you to think in a particular way. Right? It's allowed to do that. Okay, though with the other gauge system that we have, that's why some write a bibliography and the reference list. So we do the reference list, but they will correspond in the reference. But a bibliography, we have both and what you did not even cite, and even the bibliographical ones. So which means idea, an idea, inspiration can be left. Right. So, but it's important for you to paraphrase, right, in your own way, not just in your own words. We also alter the structure of the sentence. Right. So leave us with something completely different that we don't even recognize that you brought oranges. Then gaps, I've talked about that, contradictions, debates. So you have to highlight inconsistencies or conflicting findings in the literature, mapping out scholarly disagreements, positioning arguments within ongoing discussions, gaps, recognizing what is missing in existing research or where further investigation is needed. The most important aspect, because if you do not have any gap that you are feeding, even journals, they don't want even to be associated with your paper. That's facing the case. So when you write a paper, whether you feel that there's no really something meaningful that I am contributing here, but try to make it convincing that there's a gap that you are feeling. And it must be explicit because reviewers want to read that part where you say, okay, they don't want to look for the gap with themselves. Lead them somewhere. It must be clear that the gap that I'm occupied with, or the contribution that this study is making. They want to read that statement. Once they read that statement, even if you are really not contributing, they tend to believe what you are saying. So the gap must be explicit to say, okay, I have done this literature review exercise, but the gap is this. So when you are doing your chemical reviews, at the end you are saying, okay, I have done this review, but this is the gaps that are now still existing, isn't it? And I'm sure that your bigger start is now addressing. Those are the gaps that it is addressing, or it has been addressing. Because I don't know whether these papers, you pulled them from your literature review that you have done, isn't it? Or you start it as a paper on its own, the chemical review paper. No, I'm saying the chemical review paper, is it a paper that you generate or you deduce from your literature review within the broader study? Okay, so you deduce it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Was already when you were doing it, that exercise, there are gaps that you've identified, but now you are now just presenting it in form of a oh yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah, trying. All right. Thank you so much for that. Right. Okay. So
How is it different from the normal narrative?
For me, I see it shares sort of there are many things that are sort of similar within the you just call it. That's why if you find literature review papers, there's no one that will say specifically it's a chemical review paper. Because it's chemical. It's just
Because the structure is the same.
Yes.
Keep account of what are people want.
Yes.
Then, now I find the gaps in my and the ones you are interested in, then you also recommend what other researchers will also fit in.
Yeah, so it's the same thing that I think we have also spoke about that. That where can we classify it under? Was when she came, we went through some types of. I'll talk about it. Maybe I'm going to be very different.
Because
Let me just hear the online. The guys who are online, if they can hear us. Guys, those who are online, can you just confirm by voice that you can hear the conversations that we are having and the discussions that we are having here?
Yes, sir. We are here.
Oh, okay, thank you. So there's something that you were sharing before I speak. I just wanted to put this.
Yeah, other things that we can explain. For example, if you know the law, the chemistry, yeah, the learning is the chemist. Yeah, you have to talk about the chemistry behind what you're doing.
Okay.
Right? You have to talk about the methodology to which different people have used to get to one attribute.
Okay.
So you want to take another pathway, for example, I'm just that's why it's a bit different than the normal.
But yeah, also because remember, I'm thinking that when you started, there's a particular research question that you are interested in. Like for example, here she's interested in the lithium ion batteries, but a particular aspect of that she's trying to look at. So in a way, okay, let's go through this other part that I go. Because this is what I actually was more interested in. Because we want to try to bring it along to say what is this chemical review that we are talking about. Right. So I will also present other types of literature review so that we know that there's these different forms of literature review. And also the manner in which the general steps of writing a literature review paper. I'll also present it as well. But I want you, as I'm presenting it, just ponder on how does it, what elements are we sharing in common? How relate that to the chemical review papers that they are writing and that they have written before. Yes. This is okay. Okay, I will talk about systematic review, but you will we are always here. You can just walk to one office so that we can talk about it broadly. But I presented last time, I presented more about this. It includes the steps in which you do what systematically you will write it or. So that one, I think many people I've never written one on my own, but I've coached many people how they write it in the process like that. So I have a clearly procedure of what you do, including very good resources. But remember, this expression, inclusion, exclusion criteria, there are certain templates that are already there, and you have to check each article against the certain so that they specify criteria, and you score it whether you can accept it or you cannot. So we can talk about it. Because here, okay, I'll mention it here, though, but not in depth. Yeah, not in depth there. So let me just check there. Okay, contradictions. So there, okay, types of literature review. Okay, so I've already spoke about that, standalone and so on. Then original valuable work of research. These are the standalone, the one that we are now get under also a chemical review forms, but it's a paper on its own. So they also save their own purpose, usually for practice, for future research, to try to sum up what has been done, try to identify areas of what still needs to be done. So there are many purposes. Okay, for example, if I may ask Blessing, what is it at the end that you want to address through the program? What is the message at the end that they are going to give? Are you going to say, okay, this is the way what has been done, and now this is what I'm going to be done? How are you going to do it? Because I know that conclusion already you have it.
One of the things that I understand that we done on another materials. However, due to the problems that we are facing now, they still need more durable material, which is what I'm doing.
Okay, then you suggest that. Then you also give maybe recommendations of what can be done, maybe further, in terms of maybe researching that aspect and so on. So at the end, there's always something that we are trying to give. Our recommendations are not for ourselves, isn't it? They have to be used maybe by practitioners, those who are thinking. They are not featuring in legal parties. They are those who are doing grants and making use of that. Who don't have time to go and research so we don't like us. At the end, there is someone. It must be the police, purposes, the practice, that are kind of. So so these are this type of standalone articles. They say those papers. A doctor has no maybe time to try to see what is it that is happening during COVID. Some were doing research, isn't it? But some were busy applying that particular research. And I say, those who are nurses, they just need to read somewhere from someone who has summarized what's going on. That's why literature review has become, systematic review papers have become a little bit controversial, even here at the university, for postdocs as well. If you write a systematic literature review, you don't get a point automatically there. They have to go through a process where they have to check your paper. It even go to Department of Education, Higher Education and Training, for them to check whether they accept it or not. So, yeah, you can write a systematic review, then they reject it. Right. because of many people have been writing systematic review papers undermining the quality of the whole exercise, right? You cannot write a systematic literature review in 2 weeks and finish it. It's also, it's not a one-person thing. It's supposed to be done by a team, a group of people. There's even external reviewers according to its requirements. But people just sit down, then they just say, I've searched and I've done that, what even information that is not really. So they've seen a lot of people, a lot of systematic review papers coming from the universities. So I think that's what stimulated that. So they now put some rigorous checks of wanting to know, what did you add? What is your contribution to everything that you have done? So just like book chapters as well, because book chapters, you don't go through a sort of a similar process like when you're writing an article. You can write a book chapter that is theoretical, but at the end, they also want to know what is the contribution that book chapter is giving. So these are papers that people are writing them. People are writing them, but I don't think, okay, it's just a process. Doesn't mean that don't write because someone is going to reject it. But it's just a process also that they are going for the points purposes, not for just for building our career. Because our career is not guided by the point system that is used. The point system also, for me, is a subject that it's subjective, because it also even undermines the quality of research that we do, because we just write fast, and we want to publish anywhere, anyhow, you see, because we are chasing the points. Right. Then, okay, so these are the review papers that, according to, I add chemical reviews at the end there, but no, I did not see them in my research. Okay, narrative reviews that I'm talking about, aggregative reviews, maximum umbrella, descriptive mapping, reviews, scoping reviews, realist reviews, critical reviews, then the chemical reviews that it's ours that we are going to try to define what it is and what. So under narrative reviews, they give a sort of a broad overview of a topic that synthesizes existing literature without a strict methodological approach, right? So, but these papers, they differ in how do you do them. Okay, what process do you follow to gather the literature that you are going to analyze? Which is your data that I'm talking about? Because you want to pull your data from certain studies, but how do you do that? You understand? So if it's a narrative review, the method, there's no method that is structured that you must do this. Often used to provide background information, discuss trends, and highlight gaps in research. So I want you to continue thinking about that question, that how does it differ from chemical review? Because I found narrative reviews to be all similar to what you are doing with chemical reviews, the narrative one. Because at the end, you still identify a gap in knowledge, in knowledge. So an example, a general discussion on the impact of social policies on economic growth. So you just have you can come up with, I use, just because I'm from economics, so I use economic examples most of the time. But okay, I think you have captured this one, right? I move on to, okay, a qualitative, it's of a qualitative nature, right? Qualitative meaning, okay, there's no analysis that you are doing that involves maybe numbers, statistics, and other stuff. So it's a qualitative, broad overview of a topic that synthesizes existing literature without a strict methodological approach, right? So there's no strict method to say follow that. You will see that when we discuss about systematic review, you see there's a method that you must follow. You are guided to say you must do this when you are including excluding criteria, you must do this. You have to judge the quality, bias. You have to judge the quality of the sources that you are including. There must be reviewers for systematic review who review your articles, whether to include or to exclude. And it's sort of a blind process. They mustn't know each other. They only know each other when they are now resolving their discrepancies. When they have to sit down and say, okay, this is my reasons of not including this. Then they must agree on whether to include or not include. So there's a process you follow. So this one, there's no process. But there's also descriptive or mapping review, which gives a broad survey of literature that organizes and categorizes existing research without deep critical analysis. Right? So you're just categorizing to say, okay, this is what has been done, trying to cluster sort of research according to themes. Because remember, within the our field or within that topic, there are also themes that you can sort of cluster the research according to certain groupings. Okay, maybe there are those who maybe define the chemical science as with another definition. There's another group that may define it with a. So it's normally usually done when you want to try to see or to come up with a consensus on defining a particular concept. Then you gather those to try to see what is it that has been done, and then you group them. So it helps to map out the landscape of research field, showing key themes and trends. Okay, so that is, you want to see the general directions that are being taken, what methods are being used, what theories are being applied to that kind of a start. Then we have scoping reviews that explores the depth and nature of existing research on a topic without strict inclusion or exclusion criteria. So the mapping reviews as well. So the inclusion and exclusion criteria, it's not strict. You can just include what you want to. You can say maybe on this particular subject, then you go and try to look maybe to say, I'm focusing on this particular journal, or I'm focusing on this particular database. Useful for identifying knowledge gaps, key concepts, and potential research directions. Then we have a systematic review. Systematic review is the one that is rigorous because it's structured. It's a rigorous and structured review that follows a predefined methodology. So you already have for that one, you can go to the PRISMA guidelines, the prisma.org, because they're the ones that govern what is it that must be included in the literature review, right? Then involves a comprehensive search, because also the search as well, it plays an aspect as well. That distinguish these types of articles, because there are some that have an exhaustive literature search, some they just maybe you can just search what you want to search for. You don't have to go and look for grey literature as well. But for systematic, you have to look for both published and unpublished articles. So it involves a comprehensive search, selection, and synthesis of high-quality studies to answer a specific research question. Even the quality of that, you have to judge the quality as well. You have to do what they call the sort of a quality assessment. You also have to do the quality sort of a bias that you have to look at as well in terms of what that particular article is looking at. Some people are biased maybe towards a certain. If you go to pro-capitalist countries, they are biased towards capitalism. If you try they want issues that talk about globalization and so on and so on. If you go to countries that are socialist, they are biased towards issues that are, of socialistic nature. So you find that if you want to publish in a capitalist journal, or a journal from a capitalist country, then you say globalization. I don't find any support for globalization. They are going to reject your paper. They don't even want to, because they don't want to put that agenda. So they have certain, remember, publishing there's politics in publishing. Yeah, there's politics in that. So your paper can be rejected not because it's not good, but because the agenda that you are trying to push forward, they don't want it. We wrote a certain paper, then we submitted it to a particular journal. One of the reviewers, I think, is a pro-Russian person. That person, he was, he criticized us left, right, and center. You see, we are, in fact, he shouted at us. Yeah, let's just say he was shouting at us because when you read his comments, I just say, he said we are spreading propaganda on Russia and what, the wrong information about Russia and so on and so on. He wrote a lot of things that when I read it, I just said, "Ah, this is not, it's not an academic, it's not academic anymore. There's certain, it's a person who is biased. He's already showing that he's pro-Russian. Then, okay, the journal ended up even rejecting the paper based on the comments of maybe that particular person. So, which also I suspected that maybe the journal can also be maybe sort of a pro-Russian kind of a journal. But you can write to other journals that say they support Ukraine. You can say Russia illegally invaded in Ukraine and what, and they don't have a problem with it. So what I'm trying to say is that there's also sometimes where the idea that you are putting forward, who is your audience? Must ask yourself that question. Then, so we also have what are called umbrella reviews. So the umbrella reviews are like a review of systematic reviews, right? So they normally just check the quality of the kind of systematic reviews that are being published. So usually synthesizing findings from multiple systematic reviews provides a high-level summary of evidence that can identify patterns across different reviews, right? Then we have the realist review, focus on how and why an intervention works or fails in different contexts by considering mechanisms, context, and outcomes. You must also link chemical review to this one as well. Are you following it? Yeah, I also want you to link the chemical review to the realist review. The realist review focuses on how and why an intervention works or fails in different contexts by considering mechanisms, context, and outcomes. So I think it also sort of identifies more with chemical review as well. Okay, then critical review goes beyond summarizing existing studies by challenging assumptions, theories, and methodologies in the literature. I think you have seen critical reviews, even books, they do critical review of a book. So when a new method is there, then we criticize it, right? So those are called critical reviews. So it's very short articles mostly, and they are usually by invitation. So it's not if you see yourself being invited, not by these scammers who are sending 1,000 emails every day. If you are invited by a proper maybe journal to say give a critique of this and that kind of just a short article, then it's usually published as well. But I've seen mostly for books, they do those critical reviews. So myself from this, I'm seeing the chemical reviews as more of a narrative review and also realist review. So those two, they fit perfectly within those two. Then I've just tried to just talk about the chemical review here. We'll just maybe also, I think this is also sort of representing some of the things that we have been saying. So definition, this is what I would just also find okay, definition and okay, significance. Summarizing and evaluating current research, presenting an overview of the this is correct. Then identifying trends and future directions, highlighting areas of potential growth. So that is also maybe linked to gap identification as well, right? So we agree on that. The structure of a chemical review, I know that when it's being written, there's introduction, then you just put by in, but of course, the person reading it already have it's just like in when you are writing the paragraph. The paragraph is different components. If you have an introduction, a topic sentence on top, it has supporting sentences that are being presented, and it has the conclusion of the paragraph. But when you are writing it, you don't say, now this is the meaning, this is the paragraph, we now supporting it, now I'm concluding this time. In conclusion, everybody is saying conclusion. But we know when you are reading that you are concluding. And in the concluding failure, we know that we must find a link with the other. Okay. Generically, paragraph can link on their own without you having to state it somewhere. Why? Because we have linked like that on which the paragraphs are being built up. Right? But okay, this is just sort of when I was trying to just try to put it and say, okay, this is maybe the structure and I say, okay, your paper will have enough time. Summarize the key points, the findings, then it will have an introduction. The introduction is specifically explicit in the introduction. What is significant objectives, including maybe the questions that you are asking and so on, right? Then the main point, thematic synthesis of literature grouped by topic or methodology, right? But that's where you put those things that you have, what you have found from you, because from the introduction, already you are starting to present what you have found, isn't it? What we're discussing, they're already presenting what you found. So that constitutes the main point. Then you conclude with your key findings, your implications, and future actions. Are we together? So is this a sort of a representation of what you guys are doing? Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. Then, okay. So these are just some tips that I thought maybe that would be important. Okay, the issue of being comprehensive and concise. Remember, okay, when we talk about the issue of being concise, we are saying you don't have to beat about it. Let me just put it like that. Well, why? Your text is going to be wrote. Okay, get trying to deliver. Okay. When you look at this, but it's also like a presentation, but I will do this on 14 and 15, I will do we are talking about this issue of writing. I will try to work at your presentation. There are certain phrases that doesn't even add anything to what we are writing or to the message. This is very important or this is very significant. We do it. I also I write like that. Where but I want to try to tell you that it's important. Before you even think that is very important, I must tell you that it is very important. So this part is very significant in what you know. They say in academic writing is not really a good way. Let the person read it with the judge. Don't be the one saying that. This is very important, but that's what journals want to hear. Because people reviewing, you must also try to guide them so that they can see the importance. Otherwise, they want to see that way that says this is very important, right? But it's not a good way. So there are certain phrases that we just say, these are just sort of redundant, you know, the text sort of, they don't really add to what you want to talk about, right? It's just some kind of rhetoric. It's rhetoric to say this is very important. This is very what. Okay, let the reader be the one judging that. So cover significant literature without unnecessary. Yeah, right. Don't give information that does not enhance the understanding of what you want to do. At the end, you reach before you even answer the question that you want to ask. So everything must know how to the quantity in which you have to provide to the user. It doesn't mean if you know much about lithium battery, then you can write the whole chapter about lithium battery. No. So sections should be balanced. Even your paragraph should be balanced, not paragraphs that are this, some are small, some are like some are you have to be balanced. I use the yardstick of 6 to 10 lines. If I'm struggling 4 lines. But the rule of thumb, you can go to 40. I've struggled. And I've seen paragraphs that are like the raw page. They make the paragraph. Then if you ask the student, they say, no, my supervisor is the paragraph. They like this side. So
just the number of lines and the writing part. Is another thing for us to learn more. But I personally feel that it depends on how much you have to say on the point that you are discussing about.
Okay, then answering you, I always recommend that don't put multiple points in the paragraph. And one, it affects the coherence of the text. Linking multiple points. Okay, the reader would, in most cases, you can't really give a clear story. Okay. Me, when I write, I first put the ideas down. Then I link those ideas, forming my paragraph. Then already you've established the relationship, which is the logical flow, sequence in which you are going to present those ideas. As they fit into each other, delivering the outcome. So why they become long, overly long paragraph? Because we are discussing it.
So paragraph in the main paragraph. Yes. What my question, my question particularly boils down to the statement that we made that maybe one can have a standard number of lines in the paragraph.
Yeah.
I am trying to say that I don't know if this is a standard or should be recommended, but I personally believe that the length of the paragraph depends on what you are trying to that paragraph. For some paragraph, you can even write close to 10 lines before you can fully exhaust
Why you want to
there.
What they
And
are
so maybe 4 5 paragraphs, you will try to add more, then you will disturb the flow of communication. I don't know what
Alright. Yeah, no, it's also okay. That's why I say I've seen people who bring one page, then they say, but for me it's awkward because a paragraph surely because remember, why do we write in paragraph form? Yeah. Why do we write in paragraph form? It's because of this is how we are packaging okay. Me, I always suggest that where you can split a paragraph, like you're saying a paragraph within a paragraph, it means this can be two standalone paragraphs, but linking the conversation continues, right? The conversation continues because you have linked the conversation, even though you have put it in separate paragraph. Because usually when the paragraphs also become long, even the person who is reading it, it's difficult for the person maybe to they can be lost within the text. So we don't want the reader to be lost now within the text. But like I said, this is just for me. I just try to work like that. But there's no way. I think when I was trying to look at it, even if you go maybe on internet and just try to check how many, maybe a long paragraph. A paragraph should be considered long when it's maybe how long. You can find that usually they talk about around 14, 15 lines. Yeah, 14 lines, it's almost half a page. If you write 14 lines, yeah, it's almost you've written more. So those are some of the things. Then focus on recent and high impact studies as well. Like I've said, quality also matters. Remember, there are many studies. Look, if you do a literature review on a studies that are poor, then your literature review also is going to be just a poor thing. So you also need studies that have a high impact. Prioritize peer reviewed and well cited sources. Then use figures and tables and the readability and presentation of our key data, but only when you are explaining processes, when you are explaining systems. Okay, something that is complex, then you can explain it using, or when you are presenting statistics and so on and so on, right? Then you can use tables. Don't just take a text like what I've done there. Then I just make a graph of it. I sort of just present it in a figure, but yet it's the same thing that they are going to. There's nothing really complex about it that warrants you to present it in that manner. Then, okay, these are the steps. So let's go through these steps together. Okay, generally, any type of literature. So this is just a conventional. Then there's also you have to do it in any type of. Then there's also other steps that are specific to certain types of widget, like systematically do when you do for certain extra procedures. So formulating the research question, there's no way you just that by just saying about it, questions or something that we want to try to. So we must, because usually research objective in question is just one thing for the researcher. So, but when you're writing a thesis, they will say maybe separate. In a paper, if I think an objective, I need to write just take the question, because you can derive the question from the objective. So they are just improve the review. You just really in okay, so formulating research question. So members of the review, listen to that. Members of the review team, right? Then that's where we have the problem of 1% overnight writing it. Right? Not in special education. So now the quality, that's why the PhD, they are able to do it. Well, remember, they are providing that. So if there's nothing really that we have done. It's very useful one something. If the singular subject doesn't mention. So that's what they have. And it says, remember, the review must appropriately justify the need for the review itself. And identify the review's main objectives and define the concepts or variables at the heart of their investigation. Are you listening to that? Searching the existing literature. Searching the literature and making decisions upon the suitability of material to be considered in the review. So you don't just say, just go on the internet and just pick one information. Why specifically? Are they the top maybe 10 papers in the team that field? Why specifically? Or are these prominent authors that maybe are, that are bigger within the field? So there are three main coverage: exhaustive coverage, which is usually applying to management. That includes both gray and the existing publications. Presenting materials that are representative of most other works in a given field. This one, most other works. So most other works, it's you choosing. So of course, you must have a motivation why you think that to be the most other works. Why not me? Why take it for A and not me? So you have to be careful. Remember, research, there are just the human. You cannot just say, I chose this one. You must explain that, okay, I chose this one for one. That's what I'm saying. It must be just concentrating on prior works that is the same ground of people down to. So those three types of research also constitute the nature of the state that you do in family. When I was talking to Ms. Maria, she said something what she ever feel like. I was asking the last time I thought I want you to explain a little bit. What did you do? How did you come up with this paper? Of course, let's see, we analyze the done something in real business. What did you get with this? What is the procedure? So the procedure is not written. But she followed the procedure that she did. She went on a certain website. Even from your blog is from yes. Yeah, profession. You also said the same thing. There's a second website, the way you go that will select the papers for you. You must be already. Yeah, you said for chemical review. It's a second. What is the name of it? What's the name of this one? I was saying that it's I don't know how we do it, but for some for that is the one that is as they say, they use to select. You try to select the prominent studies that you must focus on. Particularly, so I don't know.
Even with those scholar, you can do a lot.
Yes, so you are now, you are following a sort of a way that is following the systematically, then you can put it on, right? So, but what the point that I want to try to emphasize is that even in your chemical reviews, you still have to go through some sort of a prescribed literature stage. And that will lead you to say these are the sources that are that I'm going to focus. Okay. So when you do a systematic literature review, you start with you go on a certain okay. When you do systematic review, even Google scholars, when Google scholars is database. So there are databases that are specific to fields. So there are databases that focus on it. Remember, on Google Scholar you can find anything. But then there are also some that just focus on your stuff. So when we say it's an exhaustive literature set, it means you have to go on order. You have to host, scholar, focus, what you want, whatever that is, including great literature. That also have some. That is if there is a report for that, where people can deposit and published literature. So that is why I'm saying. But when you are, if it's not an exhaustive source, then you can focus on what you want. You are cherry picking, but you must have the reason for cherry picking. So I don't know your stage if it's can we say it's exhaustive for chemical reviews.
Well, it's the first thing you have, once you have it, so that you take 3 years, depends. There must be limits to your car, for example. There must be limits, there must be score.
Okay, no, but I mean when you okay, when I say exhaustive search, I mean when you are searching literature, you go for everything that is published on that topic.
Yes, that is it. That's how I'm talking about limits.
Okay.
You can't go here because most of the times you can carry people have worked, you.
Yes, okay. You mean you take it from a particular year,
Yes.
you for a certain period.
Yes.
But for that period,
Yes.
how do you determine to say, okay, these are the ones that I'm focusing on? What criteria do you use?
One of the things we do is to carefully select some keywords.
Okay, let me just those who are online as well, you can join the conversation. Can you hear me, doctors? Are we
Yes,
still together? Yes, you can
yes,
also join this conversation. We are just discussing the chemical review papers. So we are just trying to come up with sort of an agreed, definition of what they are, as well as the procedure that is supposed to be taken when you are conducting that kind of a literature review article. So we are just discussing on that way, that kind of when you are selecting the literature that you are going to focus on, those articles that you are going to focus on, how do you select it? So that is what he was explaining. You will continue with the explanation. But yourselves, you can also join when you feel like you want to join, because I'm not seeing the sort of the Teams platform. You can just unmute yourself and talk, or just let me that you want to say something, then you can say it.
all right, Doc.
Okay. Yeah. So you can go on.
So I was trying to say that in addition to defining your the periods of interest, say 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, the last 10 years. So all these things will be included in the search keywords. And then you'll be that is whether you are using almost dollar or general. And we also make sure that some other keywords that will help you filter the things you do not need. Carefully select keywords, because of course within 5 years, even 5 years, you are going to be able to have many articles that have been published in that area. But you may just be interested in a certain application, for example, to make sure that that application, so that particular application is specified in the keyword, and you can strengthen that further by negating using some things like and or not and something like that. You can put them in the keyword so that it will filter off anything that you don't want. So it will only give you papers that are what should be done on it and focus on the area that you are area of interest.
So first it's your topic, but you have a specified time frame, you analyze for, then so within that period, let's say, okay, we start with the time, within from 2010 to 2024, right? One paper is published within that time, then from there you say, okay, on this topic. So broadly, okay, some can maybe say, remember, or she's looking at maybe a particular aspect of the term, but maybe she can say whatever that is being published on the theory.
So that will be two, now it's done. For example, if she's interested in the particular class of material.
Yeah, but we are coming down.
Okay.
Okay, she say on lithium battery, or let's say on chemical science, let's say. Then you're gonna get able to the chemical science. Then you say lithium battery, then you get to
Now it's done.
so yeah, that way within lithium battery, maybe she's looking for a particular methodology. That way to that methodology. So that is almost like a similar kind of research that is followed when you do this material. Right? You follow that same process, only the process management. If you go to stage of credit treatment, right? But you so that prisma, okay. When you are doing that prisma diagram, you are documenting say, okay, first I think so then I found 100,000. Then after that, maybe I faced it with this keyword, then I found. So you are narrowing it down until you end up with a number of precise that you can now check now. Yeah, you can work with. Let's just put the word work with. But now you can now hit them. Yeah, be sure that they are relevant. But still, you are reaching to further check whether they really now we have brought them to a point. So some of the things are also involved in citation software. They also assist in narrowing down, removing duplicates and what. Remember some studies. Like we can have one paper, but we have some papers that will check on temporary. So because those papers are going to be played in. But remember, when you are doing the literature stage, you are not taking the papers or downloading the papers. You are taking the references of the paper. Right? Then later on, this software is reduced now until it's available now. Then you now have to go and download and look now at those criteria and the sort of certain criteria that will just maybe share a little bit later in passing of how do you just read an article and determine that, okay, this is the correct one. So you have to go now through those steps where you're now looking at it on your own and reading it to see whether it's relevant. Along that, that is the inclusion exclusion criteria. Now we are including whether this must be included or this must be excluded. That's where with the systematic literature review, you now need even reviewers, external, who can review for you to say, okay, include this and exclude that. This is of a good. You even look at quality, because remember those papers, some of them were even violating certain assumptions, using wrong methods and so on and so on. But they are also their master papers that you have, seeming to be the correct, having the correct keywords, but not of a good quality. So you have to judge all those things. So then the third step is assessing the quality of primary studies. So in addition to screening material for inclusion, members of the future may need to assess the scientific quality of related studies. That is, appraise the rigor of the research design and methods If the math, yes. I didn't do the math. I jumped. Then I jumped to step 2 literature search. So maybe it might be me in writing, maybe the numbering. I might have written the number. Yeah, then maybe we can just make it assessing the quality. Was it? Yeah, from there, let me just assess, because we have talked about, let me just see the previous two, so that I can really verify when. Okay, step 1, formulating the search question, searching the literature search, then assessing the quality of primary studies, appraise the leak of the research, search formal assessment. Okay, so so that is you would have already narrowed it down to, even if I excluded one page, also already narrowed it down in the literature to a workable number. So this is now a workable number. We now look at now we are now screening judging the quality. Because like I said, within that literature, it's not like it was done well. Some people use it right? That means it's that okay, issues of reliability and validity of the results that will be more even with they reliable, they valid. So then that's where if it's a systematic, we now need reviewers. That's where we independent to hold that they don't know. Okay, such formal assessment, which is given and teaching progress, your members, the ability to register in the final statement. And determine whether or not the difference in the quality we have from the conclusion. Guide how they analyze the data, thinking of the remember data, we are not doing our whatever they are putting, the information. So there it needs, so that's why I always say you can't be the one who is playing and also the one who is playing. So if we are writing a review paper, then just the one doing what these things are not. Yeah, writing it, and all that you are the one. Because I'm sure that it should be one place, but one place is writing influence. That is the problem. So no matter how I've tried to emphasize this when I present, people continue to write them alone. You see, so then, okay, extracting data, gathering or extracting applicable information from each primary stat included in the sample and deciding what is relevant to the problem of interest. So now you pull whatever that you want to pull. The type of data that should be recorded mainly depends on the initial research questions that you are asking. Important information may also be gathered about how, when, where, and by whom the primary stat was conducted. So you can say maybe 5 studies were from from Asia, 5 were from Africa. Maybe what you want to do maybe is about Africa, but you don't even find anything that has been done. So in Africa, then you can make use of what has been done here somewhere else. But that is, you are now sort of it's an area that actually need further study as well. You can justify those who say not much research has been done on this aspect and without doing this literature research. How did you know that not much research has been done? There must be an exercise that you do for you to be able to say that. And I say, then so important information when I conducted the research design and methods, or whether it's a qualitative or quantitative study. So you can just give some a bit of some profile of those research that you have. 5 of the studies were qualitative and so on, that kind of a thing. Just a sort of from general description, sort of. Then analyzing data, collecting, summarizing, aggregating, organizing, and comparing the evidence extracted from the included studies. So I think you do that in the chemical review as well. You do compare to say maybe what we have found across. The study data must be presented in a meaningful way that suggests a new contribution to the existing literature. Literature reviews should be much more than a list of papers and should provide a coherent lens to make sense of existing knowledge on a given topic. There exist several methods and techniques for synthesizing quantitative data, frequency analysis, meta-analysis, and qualitative grounded theory narrative analysis, where that one that they are doing, and meta ethnography. Then so you have to provide a manner in which you can present that evidence. So reading literature reviews, I think we've talked about the issue of chemical review. We have tried to address it in a manner that now we all have a shared understanding of what it is. So as a type of a paper we are writing, or like you guys will write. So this is how we normally read. We are now reading literature, scanning, skimming, and deep reading. It goes into that. You start. Don't just take it and do it. You just need to scan it. Was the title is 30, the field may be different. Why should you download if the field is very simple? So you just can't take it work. Then after that, you skim. Skimming, it means you are just maybe checking. Okay, when you are studying, you are just looking. You protect what you say, perhaps the title, what the title say, that you have anything relating to the topic that you want to present. Okay, so that's where you also look for keywords. So keywords, figures, headings. Then when you skim, you read abstracts, introductions, and conclusions. Right? Then you can do, if you feel that this article is relevant, then you can do a deep reading. You read the whole article. Then usually articles, these are how articles are organized. Title, abstracts, introduction, methods, results, discussion, references, or bibliography. So you will usually find it. And any paper, whether the paper is subscribed for by the university or not, usually the abstract you will find it. Even papers that you pay for, the abstract is usually there. And you normally access this through the university. If it's Google Scholar, go to Google Scholar through the university, right? I don't know whether it's under library, but they usually put it on their library website. They call it maybe UJ Google or UJ Google Scholar. Then you access it through the why all those papers that they've subscribed for. Then they don't ask you to say pay or log in or do this. You can access them free, right? Otherwise, if it's outside, you have to log in with your institutional details. Then you can be able to access those papers. Then, yes. All right, this one. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, I'll share the slides with you. Then also I'll upload the presentation as well. Yeah, on our Moodle communities. If you are not, then I'll on the Moodle communities for PDRFs. Yeah, RCD. Yes. No, I would, you have put your student numbers, I will check if you are there. Then put you on the communities where, because I will just upload it on those communities, then upload the slides as well. That we have done, so that you can maybe go back to the recording if you want to just hear what we spoke about. Okay, so then the issue of okay, this is just the structure. Then, okay, because there are other things that we can also talk about in terms of how do you make sure that your title that you choose, you have sort of considered what is called search engine optimization. So which means when you search for an article on Google, for example, you can see that maybe it says there are 100,000, there are 1 million and 2 million articles. But what makes it your article to appear on one of the thing or in the 50%? Well, usually I don't vote. If you see me just reading on another 2 pages, I really do that. I don't even vote a page, but maybe there are 100 pages that are within the why should yours be the one that is better, right? That's interesting. And also include selection of the book. So when you do a search, title, the same thing that you must look at. As it speak to the topic, certain keywords within your start, are they within the title? your abstract education. Because people search keywords. So when I search those keywords, yours can be the one popping out straight. Otherwise, if it's on the number 900 and something thousand, I'm not going to go to 900 and something thousand articles. Yet maybe that was the study that I was actually looking for, right? So you have to engineer just the research on how to I craft a proper title that considers search engine optimization. And sometimes I've seen articles that give a title of what I'm looking for, but when I go inside the text, there's nothing. I'm telling you, not even one word that I was looking for, but in the title, it's there, right? So it's also, that's a wrong title. Then, okay, this is what we just do. Just a sort of a snapshot of a paper considering. If you look at the title, is the title related to the topic that you are looking for? If it's yes, does it have the keywords which I have defined? That's another question. If it's yes, then you proceed. If it's no, then skip and go to the next. If it's yes, you go down, read the abstract, summary. You are now following those steps. Then you start scheme and so you go read after someone conclusion, clear cut aims and objectives, well define research hypothesis and conclusion exercise. Then you can also be changing method, because there is no way you have to waste your time reading the paper that apply the whole report. You have to judge this paper, the paper of the paper. That's what it is. Otherwise, you take information from paper that are already misleading. Then, so if everything that is above is relevant to the topic, read that. If it's not, go back to you go to the next. So this is just sort of a summary of how you read these you read these papers. Then reading with a purpose, define why you are reading the paper. You have to ask what problem is being addressed, what are the key findings, how does this connect to your research. If it doesn't connect to your research, then it's not the right thing. You shouldn't even be reading. Then critically analyze an article. This is called the CRAB test assessment. Current, relevance, authority, accuracy, tables. Is it current? This usually applies to, don't give us statistics of 1990. Yet you are talking about population growth now. What the population is not the same. So don't say the population is in South Africa, the economy is not it's performing, it's not performing well, then you give us statistics of that. Or you say the economy is performing well, then you give us statistics of 1990. But yet now it's not. So certain things dictate the relevance of the issue. I also want those who say the sources must be moved over for the statistics depends on analysis. If it's statistic, then it's one kind. If it's a historical concept, then you can talk about this. But that saying of saying the past 5 years has led to sort of the transfer of credit of paper to other people. That is in the past to ask who has decided. Because she has been told that the past 5 years work. She would just see me when I said it and visit. Then what I said, and I don't give it to the profession. And it was not an idea. I was supposed to decide. So that is exactly in context of what it is. The time determines. If you are also saying recent studies, you can't say recent studies go back to 1990. Because now it's like the same. So it's also important to specify. Don't say over the past years, which past years, I mean past years, every year that is past year, past year. And last year's past year, 1990s, past year, 1900 to past years. So people have that over the past decade. No, be precise, over the previous two. Over in recent years. When you say in recent years, it's good to make over last years or something like that. But when you say recent years, you continue to give the person. There's always it's like let's say insurance you know from the tech you say bad. It's like you want to drop off from the tech, then you say here. But the car is moving, so here doesn't end because the car is moving everywhere. It's here. Well, it's already in motion. So, okay, relevance is it relevant what you are doing? Authority. Authority sometimes who will have said that? If it's a pastor talking about the chemical side issues, I will going to believe what the pastor said. It can be correct, but everybody might not be, because it's someone else, it's not his. But if it's also a chemical scientist, it's not the one talking about theology now. Then it's also not that because it's coming from the person. It's not that's not you believe the pastor more because it is. So you have to evaluate who is saying. That's where it comes to Wikipedia, newspapers, what. Could it be really different? Of course, it might be true. Wikipedia might be true. That's why Wikipedia. The problem is because it's not scholar, it's not verified. There's no peer review. So we don't have confidence. That is, it's not the issue that it's wrong or whatever, but no one else verified. That is the issue. Then authority accuracy. Go and check. Check the method. Know what particular method is being done. Don't be asked that I did the quantitative, start the quantitative, but then the person go and interpret. I this is the quantitative start, what the person presents quantitative, the quantitative method. So check the method, check the requirement of the method, check the assumptions that needs to be check the sample size. Those certain methods works with a particular number. Maybe the certain experiment that you do with a particular apparatus, and children, the environment, the setting is that. So you have to do the check. And then the purpose of this matter is really. So you have to do that, all that assessment. So this is where you can be at your voice critiquing. This is the critical perspective I'm talking about. Talking about the literature, being a judge of what is it. Join the conversation by looking at these issues. Right then, questions to ask when reading critically, understand the argument, evaluate evidence and methodology, identify biases and assumptions. Assessing limitations and gaps as well. What are the stats limitations, sample size, scope, methodology, all those things. Those are the issues that undermine the quality of the stat. You know, if they are violated, then obviously I'm not going to believe the results. If they are not valid, then why concluding on something that is not valid? Then situate the stat in the broader literature. How does this stat contribute to the field? You know, then this is way in which you can organize thematic approach, the way that you present things. Those are themes, isn't it? So that is thematic approach, theoretical approach, methodological approach. So you can group studies as well according to maybe the approach, the themes that they are addressing. And but remember, you do this for. I always say this: the exercise of literature review, it will collapse to one page. Because all this exercise, you don't necessarily need to write down, but you are trying to identify trends, areas of progress, areas of agreements, the difficulties that are there, then we just the majority of the research, don't say much of it, then you put one. That's not much of it. You have 5,000. Most of the this particular orientation, they are taking this direction, then you sign president. Others also remain neutral, you know, the subject. You mentioned that neutral. Then you just show, that's why you find they start just say one thing, then they put a lot of sources in the Bible. They are shown, not because, but for you to identify those sources that are saying that, there's a process that you have to go, isn't it? For you to come up with to say that, okay, so these are sort of ways in which literature can be grouped. You can organize it. For you to be able to comment on it, it's after you've organized it, isn't it? But you usually do this for looking for particular trends, orientations, agreements, controversies, what, yeah, those things. So I think all these approaches, thematic, theoretical, methodological, they give you a way. When you are now talking about your literature, talk about it along these lines. Instead of writing like an honors student of say, you say so and so, then one paragraph is about one source, another paragraph is one source. We left that long way. And if you want it to be criticized, write like that and publish, send for publication. Reviewers, they love that. They will tell you that you're just writing like an honors text and all that. And it's not a good feeling when you're a doctor. Then they tell you that you're writing like an honors. It's not so you grow, you must grow. If I look at my work when I was honors, I laugh. You must laugh at your work. You must laugh at your first paper. You understand? Why? Because we grow from that. We grow. So if you don't show that growth, then it is an issue. I want to finish exactly. Oh, it's 4 o'clock. Let me just go faster than we go. Since I think others are already gone. References in management softwares. All those are. I think I just go on Google. They just gave me that the AI of Google. Okay, that's some of these for literature search. You have said this search rapidly, but you are using paper, summary, citation, quantitative research, quantitative atlas theory. I often judge atlas theory, but I always I will try to say, there's some of the things that involve the net of the biases. So I will able to bring something able to understand what is it that they are talking about, or be able to refer to where we can get appropriate help. So all these things, ChatGPT, what, they are here, these things, they are here. And we are using them, some of these elements. Oh, you were taking? All right, I'm back. I think we can just take maybe just a few minutes and we close. Then you can book for sessions. You have provided all your details there. Okay. So, all right. Then we also have okay, mistakes in literature review reading, passive reading, not engaging critical. You are just one reviewer called it fact dumping. Yeah, you're just dumping facts. There's nothing, you're not engaging with it, yeah, but you just say, you just take from that, you just put the take from another one, you put there. You say. So simply summarize the studies without questioning them. Information overload, trying to read everything. Those ones who download even things that are not relevant to what they are looking for and read, then later decide that, no, this is not relevant, this is relevant. No, you don't have to overload it. Attempting to cover every paper instead of focusing on relevant literature. Lack of organization, no structured approach, reading in a scattered way, leading to difficult synthesis. You just read. There's no particular structure of how do you maybe read those kind of things. So passive reading, ask critical questions. This is what you can do. Ask critical questions. What are the key arguments? Are they well supported? What are the gaps? Compare and contrast studies rather than treating them in isolation. Take structured notes, e.g., for example, table format to track key points, methods, and critics. Highlight, do annotate those annotations. Information overload, define clear selection criteria based on relevance. That span that you are talking about, I'm looking only for these years. But it doesn't mean you can just come and just tell us that I'm looking for these years. I'm only analyzing these years. There must be some way, a base that you are starting from. So you have to say maybe literature, there are review papers that have been written on this topic and they found this summarizing what is the existing already. Then you take it from there. You now add your come to the time that you are going to. So prioritize prioritize seminar works and recent influential studies as well. Use abstracts and conclusions to assess relevance before deep reading. I think I spoke about that. Lack of organization, organize literature by theme, theory, methodology, use it, literature matrix or concept map to track ideas, summarize key points in a structured way rather than just collecting PDFs. Right? Be strategic, read with purpose, be critical, engage beyond summarizing, be organized, use tools for efficiency, categorize literature by theme, theory, methodology, and just that I was just summing up everything that we discussed in the session, just some sources, open discussion. I think we were engaging all along. So I don't think there's, but if there's any questions, then we can ask those questions. Yes. It is. In literature, it's what has been published. That is what it just means. Existing publications. The origin. Yeah. But that history is documented, isn't it? It's part of it as well. I always love that as well. I present, taking a historical approach. It's like okay, we always say writing, the way that we present the conversation is always like a upside down pyramid. We start broad, then we come refining until, yes, from broad to being specific. So I always take a historical approach on a development of something. If I'm looking at something, I trace it from when it started. But it doesn't mean now that the focus now is on the history of that particular thing. Remember, you do it it's just in brief and come, right? So history, literature, it's what has been published. And we always want scholarly literature, which means those publications that have undergone a peer review process, usually a blind, double blind peer review process. That is what is academic. Someone have judged the quality. Remember, peer review as an exercise is there for a purpose, right? Whatever that comes, because it's going to be used for scholarly purposes, so we must be sure that it's correct. It's of a good quality and it's correct. Otherwise, we should not accept that. Right. So that is the purpose of peer review. So think mostly what you find on Google Scholar, you will never find something that is not peer review. That's why if you go on Google, general Google, you can find everything. But you have never find anything saying Facebook on Google Scholar. Okay, nothing. It doesn't say Facebook. But go on general Google, it will say even things on Facebook anyway, they will come out.
They say to me, do not be.
No, you have to go. That's why I said that notion of saying that you must be limited to 5 years is not correct. Why? It's specific. It differs from one context, one perspective to another perspective or to another context. So if it's a historical context, sort of, you have to go back in history. But you can trace back, because remember, certain ideas, notions, theories, they evolve over time. Some of them they even become obsolete, and we leave them in history, right? Or they are replaced by, there are certain things, but remember, they served their purpose of refining and leading us to the space where we are. That's research. So it doesn't mean if it's now redundant, then it means that it's not important anymore. So you cannot cite me because I cited that in 2024 already you are giving credit to where it is not true. That is wrong. I'm not the one. You go to the primary source. So some do those secondary citations as cited and so and so. No, only when that publication doesn't exist, then you can cite secondarily, like saying so and so is cited and so and so. But if the primary source exists, go to the primary source. Also refrain from, I looked at the text of a certain person who was forgotten. Don't quote text of a person, including the citation of the person. But similarly, tempting of making it with plagiarism. It's making plagiarism. But you can't take an idea that someone, what someone paraphrasing, then you take it. Rather, go to the primary sources that the person then go to the information. So if the primary source is the go to the primary. Yes.
I just joined from what she So let's say there is a paper by Guam Vincent in Sakai. They write their paper, it's published, but in the second paragraph, they reference W in basic.
Yeah.
Right? Then I come across that paper, and I want to reference that paragraph. Right? The second paragraph. The paper is for Vincent. And Takani, but in the second paragraph, it has that word in place. And I want to reference that second paragraph.
Okay.
Who should I give credit to?
No, the credit goes to the primary owner. And yes, because they are the ones who want. Remember, I also said that it's an idea that they're going to put in place. And I said this. So which means it's not my idea. And I borrowed from them. So when you ask, that's what I'm saying. Rather taking what I want, so, or instead of the primary source, they make your own decision. Not in my community. Don't copy my community. Don't copy my. I paraphrase the in other words, the applies already for me in a way. Even though you are giving credit the way it's supposed to be.
Say the person referring to some, I give an example. They got an idea of someone, right? And then they decided to cook themselves. And you have got an idea of cooking themselves. I think you should responsible. Okay. The cooking and then those elements, because you got the idea from cooking.
Okay, remember what you put, that's your now. If I'm talking about your result, obviously I'm not mentioning someone else, because we have done the cooking. We have come up with your own conclusion. Then I have the original. But I can't say that you were inspired with the cooking. And so then you were inspired. So, but if I want what inspired to do, then I have the people who inspire me. But if I want to take the cooking that you made that after the inspired, then I can check here. You can be inspired in coming out with your own method of cooking. Then at the end, it's not the method of the people who inspired. It's now the zero. So now if I want to use your method, then I'm not studying.
It's like you giving a method and I use his method with his like changes.
No, but there's something that one does. You can't tell me that if you add more water in the meat, then you say Tanzania another picnic.
It's just better.
Oh,
I think if you read the paper, that references someone's work, but you actually got access to the paper. I mean, the information you want to use is not from the original source. You always have to go back to the original source, except if the paper you saw has contributed significantly to what the existing one has done.
Yes.
And then either you can say some of the findings, brought new ones, then you are interested in the new findings. But if what you are going to be referencing to is still the old discovery, you need to move on to that source.
Yeah, even in that case, you can cite both of them.
Yeah.
You cite both of them. Why? Because the present author has made significant contributions, right? But not making more soup. Then you say, it's another method.
What this my sister said earlier regarding literature review, starting from being historical literature review. It's a good one, but I think it also depends on the audience.
Yes.
Audience in the work.
Hmm.
If you are writing a manuscript, it will feel that is established, such that you will begin to start from the history again. You will be creating redundancy in the writing.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
You need to start from
It's true. Yes.
Very fine. But if the target audience are comprised of laymen in the field, people don't have an idea of the evolution of that field, then it is better for you to start from the history. You need to trace from the back how it started. Let's say within some years, even within some years, the discoveries were comparing, and you will not go into details of that. Now fast forward, okay, just mention some important discoveries during some years. Then you fast forward to the periods when there were significant contributions. You get it, point? So that depends on the audience actually. Because if you are writing to the people who are not in the field, and you start from something that started in 2000, for example, you now started in 2010. There is no way they can connect because some of them might say, "Oh, we have been hearing about these things since some years back." You get it? But if it is in a field-based article that scholars there, they know the evolution, in that field, you don't need to be repeating about it.
So that's why we say, if you want, he spoke about the it means because there are other things, you can't go back and start, but they have already the two papers that have been done. So take over from when this is. So even so, but it doesn't mean you don't mention that there are reviews that have been done. This is what they found, and me and not going to what to do this. So the same also applies to that issue. It doesn't mean you cannot talk about it, but don't dwell on it. Just talk about it in passing is leading to what you want to say.
Is there any other questions before?
That's why for me, like these days, I just address with science. Don't need to be without believing. Science, keep it.
Yes.
Yes, you coincide because then you hit the name of the head straight what must be done.
So that is where now the issue that I've been talking about, where I was saying the literature review is I think take you 1 month to there's a time when I was I was starting to do the literature review. Then I did it with traditional approach. I'm not doing the class when I've been taking the findings that patient. But it's always good to do that if you are going to use those focus amount of time. So, but that what it is again, it took me 2 weeks to do. But at the end, it was just for me to identify the orientation, the direction of the research, the gaps that are existing, just to find what is it that has been done, what has been done, which methods are they applying. If also for me to know what method should I really apply. So that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, literature review, it's not the it will collapse to just something if you do it appropriately. But we just what we have attended will just be saying every study, summarize every slide. We summarize, so the paragraph, that's that paragraph. At the end of the day, there's no even a link. There's no a clear link. It's just like I just say, so and so said this, so and so found that, so and so said this, and so did that in China. So that is not. It doesn't really constitute a literature. You should find papers with good literature and see that how they go straight to the point. Then it's also a preference. There are some reviewers who don't care about your
the literature or what is it that is already there. They just want you to be straight to the gap. Then what is it that you are doing yourself? They care much about what you do. So that is from where your analysis that you are going, your methods that you are going to use, analysis and your conclusions that you have made, without placing much on literature. Then some they focus on literature, some they want theories to underpin your study. If you don't have, especially in social sciences, if you don't have a theory, then your paper can be brought back because there's no theory, right?
No, there's a question in the sent to me by one of our virtual.
Okay, let me just check as well then. There's nothing right. Okay. Let me check on the chat. Doctor, it is visible. Say, can you please watch my? Okay, I don't see any. Maybe they said private.
This is one question to me.
Okay.
So the person is asking about, is asking question regarding the review with 50% research. Say you spoke about something like that, and you last, it was the last part of the discussion.
Okay. Okay, no, I was just talking, I wasn't referring to a review as such, but I was talking about originality. That's at sometimes when you take, okay, when they check similarities, journals that do that on your manuscript, they can say they give a certain percentage for them to consider that as an original article. So they can say maybe 60% of the work must be new.
Okay.
Right? So which means you have done something. You might take your literature that you have written before, but within that paper, I have a new method, I have a new analysis, I have new conclusions, I have new results. Then that constitutes maybe 60% or more. So this sort of a percentage just set by differently by journals in terms of their policy in determining what constitutes original research and what is not original research. Yeah. So that's when I talked about this issue of a percentage, but it's not relating to literature review as such.
But the issue regarding research or citation, like years of development and citing now. I think we cannot completely throw it away because sometimes when you read articles, when you read students' work, you realize that the reference that the students provided in the text, okay, are too obsolete. They are too obsolete because more works,
It's been
thousands of works, new works have been conducted after that.
Yes, it's important
that have communicated more recent findings.
Yeah.
But then, if the student's base or if a student basis is a work on paper that are too obsolete, then such students stand the chance of leading themselves astray.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
maybe
works that were done in 2000, for example, factors that were considered, for example, in chemistry now, factors under which the condition under which the studies were conducted. You know, some of the conditions did not reflect what we have presently. Then other findings, more recent works factored into consideration even conditions that are more challenging, more complicated, that can change the direction of your results. Then for you now go to something of 2000 and declaring that is what you are basing your own findings.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is what I was stressing, that this is contextual. Yeah, it depends on the situation. I gave an example of an economic example where I say if it's statistics, then it must be something that is that is recent. You can't come in maybe wanting to teach me about computer, then you teach me Microsoft XP or something of long back. MS DOS, what were those systems? Okay, it doesn't, but it doesn't mean that we cannot talk about that. Okay, this is where we came from, and this is where we are today. So we can still talk about that. I have another example that I sometimes give. It's just it's escaping my mind, but it's important. It's important that this is always contextual. So it's important as well to yeah, history, both they are intertwined. Me, how I provide my sources when I talk about certain things, I can reference using certain time periods in a chronological order. So I can provide maybe 3 references for one thing, but I'm taking one from maybe historical context, then I put another one maybe somewhere, then a more recent one, right? But I don't, yeah, so it's the context really determine what should be done. So I think I haven't seen any question on the chat. Is there any question from the those who are online? Dr. Damesh, is there any question, Dr. Sharma?
I know
Asandishwa, any
my
question?
question is already being addressed. So thank you. And it was a nice discussion. But as Dr. Wahab said, there was a discussion at UJ last time regarding a review paper which is indicating 50% originality of your work. So we were not sure about that. So as you stated, like we are representing the work in a different way, so it may indicate the originality. So that's all about review, whether we are systematically reviewing it or analytical or critical review or something like that. But the originality is still a question from my side. So if you can state it clearly, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma, for that contribution and clarification. Can you hear me, Dr. Sharma?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, okay. That was a contribution rather than a question, isn't it? I couldn't hear you very clearly. I think it was a contribution that she was making in terms of the issue, the requirements of the university regarding systematic review papers, the originality, the content that must be original. So they do check that, and the systematic review papers are further subjected. They are, for you to get a point, it's after it has been approved by DHET. And for certain people, they might not get approved. So which means if you write systematic review this year, you will only be credited for that point after DHT have accepted them or not, maybe the following year. Right. Is there anything else, or we can now close the session?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Dr. Damesh, Asandiswa, can we close the session?
Yes, Doc, we can close it. There's nothing on my side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was waiting for a signal from Dr. Damesh, but I think, thank you, guys. This has been the session itself. I think it has been an informative session. We have sort of discussed quite a number of things, starting even from a professional kind of a perspective in an academic setting, you know. And so those things that we think that maybe sometimes they are not important, they are indeed important for us in terms of the communication that we make. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Doc, I just want to ask you something. Is it possible for you to share the presentation with us so that maybe we can go through it?
Okay, what I'm going to do is that I will upload them on our Moodle community. I hope, are you registered on the community? On our
Yes,
Moodle?
I am.
Okay, so I will share it there. I will create and share it there.
All right, thank you very much, Doc.
All right, so I will share both the recording and the slide. So in closing, I think it was
fruitful session. These are some things that we wanted to hear. I also appreciate your presence, taking your time, honoring the invitation, and coming here to, for us to have a conversation on these important issues. And also for our participants who participated online, I also thank you for taking your time to be with us, Dr. Damesh and Dr. Sharma, and Asandiso as well. Thank you for attending the session. With that, I'm now closing the seated and right session for today. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.